Hello, and welcome
Hello,
to the Humanity, where we do the things with the stuff for the people. I am Matt.
and I'm Tommy, and welcome tonight, everybody. Glad you joined us for what should be a nice and cheery discussion and other, hopefully, humorously, ironically ways to describe a conversation about death. Right?
Ironical.
Ironically, ironical, indeed. So yeah, how are you doing this evening, Matt?
Pretty Doing pretty well today. What was that?
Hmm.
Yesterday when we got to when the end of the world was almost televised.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it looked like. That was the feeling.
hmm
Yeah.
And what was
But
this exactly?
what was that?
What was this exactly you're talking about? Just so the viewers at home
That's
are all caught up.
true. Because yeah, it was Iran's retaliation for retaliation, and
Mm.
all the way back to the Bible, basically, and maybe like a few thousand years before
Yeah.
that too. It's like,
Yeah.
nah, you over and over again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Um,
because you're not us. So, yeah,
yeah, but we're all doing that.
that's true. Yeah. So, so I guess
Yeah,
all things considering,
no, but no, like, yeah, I don't know. I found a good place to put all that in my brain. I think,
no, that helps.
yeah, but it was freaky as hell. It was like watching a sci-fi movie.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't see, I saw some pictures of it. Like, yeah,
Listen to
read
it
some
live.
reports and stuff.
It went like the sound of it and the
Mm-hmm.
way the newscasters were talking. I'm like, this is how we thought it would be. Like all the good movies
No.
about end of the world wars and stuff, like
Mm-hmm.
that they had the tone exactly right. I was like, oh, this has happened before. This is weird.
Well, good to know they're so accurate with it. It's also nice of them to do that, like coinciding with our because it works well with our episode topic tonight. So that was
Yeah.
very thoughtful of them. Um, not that that's why we chose it, but yeah. But yeah. Also, the our vice presidential debate last night. Did you get a chance to watch any of that? Or
Yeah, I listened to it live. I got something on my
no,
tongue.
no,
Yeah, I listened to it
I
live
hate
and
that.
and a live commentary by the Majority Report people.
Ah, okay,
So that was good. Did
yeah.
you get to like watch much of it or hear anything?
I watched pretty much the whole thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
like a little bit with the kids, like they were. Yeah, I think they were just confused by most of it.
Well, and they're like, yes, if they thought this doesn't matter, why is it a big deal? It's true. The VP debate doesn't matter for the outcome of an election historically.
Yeah.
It's not a thing. So it was just everybody getting their panties up in a bunch because that makes
hmm
somebody money
Yeah.
somehow.
Yeah. I mean, and I guess the conversation seemed, for the most part, to go pretty well. Certainly went well than any debate involving a Trump. Um,
Yeah.
but
However, what was really interesting is how it was a mediocre debate. Like I think the it was probably a draw, like the effect it
hmm
had on viewers or just how well they presented themselves. But
hmm
if somebody made the argument that Vance won, in quotes, it's really just like dueling interviews. It's not really a debate.
yeah, pretty
Um,
much. I mean, there was a little bit like crosstalk, and I also just love, like, if people notice, I guess if you don't really listen, but when I was watching it, the look that Walls was giving Vance the whole night, like he kept just like looking over at him with this look on his face, like, "Oh, bless your heart," and it was funny.
yeah, yeah, he he humbly thinks Vance is an idiot. That's kind of the expression. The other times
Mhm.
it was kind of like a coach shooting somebody like a glance,
Mhm.
kind of going, "The fuck you say?"
Oh, and one of my favorites, like, it was one part Vance was saying, like, "And now I know," I don't remember what he was talking about, but he's like, "Now I know people are gonna hear this, and they're gonna start saying all kinds of bad things about Trump. They're gonna say this and that," and, like, they were showing him 2 side by side, and Walls, like, while he was saying that, he's like, "Mhm, yep." Like, "Yes, that is exactly what we are going to do." Correct.
He's like, Balls was told you just look at him like you're aggressive. Oh fuck! I lost it. Lost my train of thought in mid sentence.
That was quick. That was, like, usually it's yeah. Usually it's a bit more of a trail off, but that just, like, jumped the tracks. That was impressive. Um,
Yeah, that was catastrophic. Like whatever. Like
so anyway,
somebody, somebody pulled the plug on that thought.
yeah. Well, but speaking of thoughts, maybe I don't know. That was a segue. What are you drinking tonight?
The Ivy Yusuf again.
Mm-hmm.
It's the
Good.
last one I had of it, and it's like it was the only beer I had. A single
Ah,
can of beer. I'm gonna bum Aaron, my wife's beer.
ah,
The
that's
fretboard,
nice.
the fretboard IPA that she
Ooh,
always gets.
nice, nice quality. So yeah, so my drink for the evening is actually sort of tangentially tied to kind of the topic, but really more the reason why I wanted to discuss the topic tonight. I'll get into that in a minute. Having a glass of wine because tomorrow is the day for my kind of regular routine. I think it's every 4 months now. I still get like full body scans, coming off of, going into remission from cancer. And while I had cancer too, obviously, but they just keep doing the full body scans just to make sure everything's still cool. So I got my next round tomorrow. And for one of the scans, which is a PET scan, they want me to, the day before, like, eat pretty low carb because I'm supposed to keep my blood sugar below a certain level. Now, I only found out a few months ago. So this was like after like over 2 years of doing these. Like, they never said exactly where, at what level your blood sugar was supposed to be. Like, all they said was just eat low carb. They never said like what exactly that means. Or so I was like the whole day before usually just like freaking out, like still like, oh crap, I accidentally ate a chip or something with potato in it, or you know, or yeah. But so then finally a couple months ago, I finally just asked the PET scan tech, like when he took my blood sugar level, like, so what target like blood sugar level are you actually looking for? And it turns out like the max is like roughly twice what my normal blood sugar is. So I'm like, so I didn't have to be doing this the whole time. Now I still try to be relatively low carb the day before just in case. But as far as alcohol is concerned, I actually found out, and I read in one place, and that was good enough for me, that wine can actually lower your blood sugar for like a 24-hour period.
Neato.
So fortunately, yes, I still have the same box from the Jesus episode we did like a month ago now. So so it's it's not vinegar yet, but it's not bad. So I mean, it was box of wine, so it wasn't that fantastic to begin with, but
I think it takes a
yeah.
while for it to go bad.
Yeah. Sorry. I just said
I mean, a regular bottle of wine takes like 3 days or something
yeah.
at most.
Yeah. And
And then
well, I can say I can drink a bottle of wine that quickly, but I probably shouldn't. So that's why I usually opt for the box. But yeah. So speaking of like having my scans tomorrow, like I said, been in remission from cancer for 3 years. No, sorry, someone's texting me, just making sure it wasn't anything urgent. So yeah, all good. So yeah, I've been having my full body scans still. Like for a while, I was having them every 3 months. I think now they put me down to every 4 months, especially like after last year when they stopped treatment. And also, apparently, soon, I don't know if it's going to be after this round or maybe the next one, but my oncologist said if they keep coming back clear, they may actually just go ahead and remove my port, which I still have. People know like it's basically an implant that they can inject. Usually, cancer patients get it for chemotherapy. I had immunotherapy for the most part, but easier way to inject you instead of like sticking in the arm every few weeks. So yeah, so actually having that removed, like that would be like pretty big deal. Like other than like just stopping treatment, that would be like one of the first like kind of definitive like, hey, you're doing really well kind of steps. And so yeah, but it's still like one of those things like especially like the night before and like the day of having my scans, like I still get like a little anxious just because people know anything about melanoma. It's like risk of recurrence is higher relatively to other cancers, I guess. So like every time it's like, oh, is this going to be the one that comes back and shows that it returned? Or so yeah, and also knowing that, ooh, well, looks like we lost Matt, so I'll just keep talking until he comes back. But yeah, it's just like every time, it's like, hey, is this going to be the one where it comes back? So just kind of anxious about that usually. But yeah, just kind of noticed, not noticed, just kind of a thing. But yeah, ever since going into remission, just the whole idea of just like thinking about death, it comes up. It seems like it's maybe a little more around this time. But yeah, there he is.
Sorry, I had Wi-Fi issues for a second.
Yeah, you'll get those. So yeah, you didn't miss much. Just me kind of rambling on about, yeah, I get a little anxious around scans and thinking about death and stuff. But yeah, because it's just something that ever since, obviously going through having cancer and being pretty convinced, oh, I'm dying right now. But then turned out pretty quickly I wasn't. And I was like, crap, now what? But yeah, and especially with this whole like having routine scans, so it's like every few months I get it's a potential like very like concrete, like am I dying now or not, kind of thing. So that's always fun. Yeah, I mean, and you've also had like your own like kind of, I'd say like near death experience, but not like what people usually, there was not the whole like out of body thing, but you almost died too, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So
I'm not sure. I didn't. I don't remember. I could have. And
no, yeah. For people who don't remember that story, you want to fill in like a brief version of what happened there? Yeah, that's fine.
I got deep in thought over that for a second.
Yeah.
Around I guess it was around 2000. I was in a car accident that I caused because I was drunk, and I was on the highway, and this might help add detail to the story. I was driving a four-door Chevy Cavalier, not the smooth body ones, like the ones with the boxy lines. It was aqua fresh green. Well, that all got fucked up by getting T-boned by a semi in the passenger side. And they're very bendy cars. And so somehow I survived that. Kind of physically impossible. According to a Mythbusters episode, where they tested to get a side impact of 40 miles an hour, and their jelly man in the middle didn't survive. I think they tried it again. Another one for a different reason, but yeah. So I still don't know what to make of that. I used to think it was God who took care of that,
right?
but then like I really wanted to know why. Then after that happened, I'm like, okay, yeah, I really feel like something yanked me away from like dying, and and then I was fine. But then I like was begging God for like why, like what am I supposed to do now? Um,
Mm.
and it was just kind of like
Yeah.
silent, like dead air on that.
Mm. Wow.
That might have been the first seed for atheism.
Mm. Yeah, I was gonna say I don't know if I've ever heard you like express that, like at least in that way before. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I didn't realize
that'll
that was it in my head actually,
no.
because
Hmm.
I wouldn't have described it like that previously.
Right.
But no, yeah, I was like that seems like I don't know, pretty critical thing to know, and like I would kind of expect it.
Mm.
Like
Yeah.
you save somebody from death, and then and they're it's just natural for that person to go, "Why did you do that?" or
Right.
"Thank you,"
Hmm.
But if it's like a stranger or something, it like yeah,
Yeah. I guess just like knowing it was God and he's ostensibly at least the one kind of in control of things and at least has some sort of say of like when our time comes and you know the whole like he has a plan and purpose for your life and he won't take you till he's done with you or whatever, which that whole like he won't take you till he's done with you, like
he
the
seems
more I
swell.
think, yeah, the more I've thought about that's a really disturbing way to look at it. Like just also for from the idea of like I'm only here, like I'm not here for anything I want. I'm only here for his purposes, and whenever he's done with me, he's gonna like kill me or let me die or however you want to look at it. But
Yay!
yeah, that's just
Puppetry's fun.
uh, it's kind of fucked up, but yeah. So, but I think obviously just with the two of us, facing death in the various ways that we did. Um, so it like just surviving things like that, whether it's like serious disease or accident or like all kinds of things that where it's like, oh, I should have died from that. Um, that'll change your perspective. But then obviously, then like losing your faith, like for you, you know, years later, like even though it sounds like it maybe started a little bit there at the time, and then me like pretty much immediately after surviving, it's like so that kind of like really fucked with my head even more. Like now that I'm like thinking about like, oh, I could have died. Like, what would have that been like? What would have happened? And I was like, oh, but now I don't really believe in a heaven or God or any of that stuff anymore. So that just made like thinking about death like so much more complicated. I don't know why I did that to myself, especially then. But uh, so yeah, that's just kind of some of the things I wanted to talk about tonight. Just things like do we think there's any kind of afterlife, and like either way, like how does that affect how we live this life and how we value it, how we treat it. But yeah, so yeah, I don't know any particular angle or aspect of that you want to kind of start with. Oh, but first I also wanted to point out my so Mr. Fuzzy Bottoms from last week is gone. He's been replaced by my little authentic Norwegian troll.
I was gonna say that's a good looking troll.
Yeah, got it from Norway by way of Epcot Center in Disney World. I got a couple of these guys. I think I named this one Oslo.
I did not realize his nose was so long.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm. Yep. So yeah, that's Oslo. He's just kind of going to be hanging out back there this evening. So, in case anyone was wondering. So yeah.
I don't know. There's okay, so
No, the spacing's bothering me. Sorry.
You know, and I think so. Near-death experience. You know, there's
Mm-hmm.
sort of somebody like actually. Usually they were dead and then they came back, and
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yeah. Keep talking. I'll be right back.
just
I missed
having
something.
like a close, serious brush with death. It has things that happen similar to you, like a near-death experience. Like there's some of that, like real clear reflection that happens. You're like,
Mm-hmm.
it's
Yeah.
kind of like when you realize that you weren't saved for any purpose exactly. Like you were saved because that's how it worked out.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because afterwards,
Mm.
I think both of us. It just took me a weirdly long time for it to fully sink in. Um, just that like there isn't the meaning you thought to life. Not that
Mm.
not that there isn't meaning.
Yeah.
It's like it's just things that keep going. Like it's like you came back because from the brink or whatever because it just wasn't time. Like not that you know what I mean. Not that there's any
Mm.
intention behind it. It's
Right.
like why did it like the other day when it rained? Like why didn't that exact storm or rain come a day earlier? Well, because it wasn't time.
Right. Yeah. Just
That's
the
just
time meaning like the atmosphere and various
yeah. Like
meteorological
you
effects or
can
whatever
just
just
speed that
aren't.
up.
Yeah. Yeah. The time of physics, as it were.
I don't know. I've been having like real deep thoughts lately about
Mm.
just the fabric of everything, and um, like more the more I reflected on it, the more I realized that I think that um, everything is just playing out.
Mm. Yeah.
Like I didn't ask to be
Mm-hmm.
born, nobody did,
Yeah.
and we like
At least so we can tell.
yeah,
Yeah. So so
I,
maybe that.
like we don't have like meaning we don't have free will, um,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't know how everything goes until it happens. So that's like the weird
Right.
quirk of consciousness that like I really think this is all just all this playing out. Uh,
Mm.
however, also a part of us is like doesn't know what happens before it happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But according to some like tests and like observations, it almost seems like there's a part of us that does
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
So yeah, which is like, or at least knows before our conscious mind knows that it's going to happen. Yeah.
Here's something interesting
Yay.
because I've been thinking about like how everybody's peoply emotions and um, the way like emotions rise and fall in particular areas about particular topics, and like the southeast of the country, right, has been going just kind of ape shit, uh,
Right.
getting all more like themselves, and and
That's one way to put it. Yeah.
and around that same time, hurricanes have been worse in the southeast. Like, is there? Are there like stormy emotions before like a natural disaster or
Mm. Yeah. Could be. I mean, because there's there's all kinds of different ways that like people feel like just in their bodies,
Yeah.
like effects of weather change. I mean, that's why I know like for the past few days, I've just been feeling kind of under the weather. I think it's probably because of like how around here the weather has been changing, going
We just
like kind of
slammed right
cooling
in the
off.
fall.
Like, yeah, like with all like the rains and like residuals we got from Hurricane Helen. What was
or Helene? I don't know. There's an E on
Helene?
the end.
Helen? I don't know. But yeah, but the same thing happened that happens every time we get those residual storms from a hurricane. Like no matter where I've lived in like what neighborhood or area of Cincinnati, always the same thing happens. We get the storms and I lose power for like a few minutes and then it comes back. And that's like as bad as it ever gets for me. So
Ours was out for a few hours.
Mm.
Yeah, no, more, yeah, for like 5 or 6 hours.
Wow. Like that's one part of town I have yet to live in. So maybe that's
we got hit real hard. Like the outage map looked like somebody just sneezed blue all over it.
It's one way to put it. Yeah.
It's like, oh, there we are underneath, the giant outage monster.
Damn outage monsters. Why do we even have those? So yeah.
So what were we talking about? Talking
about like the
things you're
determinism. Yeah, things just kind of happen. Yeah,
and how like maybe our emotions, like part of our brains, do things coming.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, there could be some sort of connection to like the change in the atmosphere and pressures and whatever, like affecting with your emotions and stuff. I mean, yeah, that could be a real thing. So
yeah, and part of the reason I said that was because with I follow like the UAP UFO stuff, and the information that's been released, it's trickling out through like side channels and less popular podcasts, and then the more people get interested in it, the more it shows up on bigger things. But they were talking about how different combinations of like low levels of radiation, like low levels of like gamma radiation, for example, can like causes the human brain to feel a certain emotion or a certain like category of emotion. And the closer people get to like the craft or whatever they are, there's like different groups. People either feel like a swelling of all like the good kind of emotions, or they have like a swelling of like dread and all the bad kinds of something is happening with a field of like ick or yay around the outside of them. And it seems like it's to get the reaction from the people that they want to get. Like, do they want them to go away? Well, make them like afraid of the everything, and
that'll do it. Yeah,
and make them feel yay for the everything.
I like the everything.
You're like, don't be afraid. Like an angel,
yeah.
Because you're like,
interesting.
Yeah, there's like lots of overlap. The stuff that's like actually happening is very similar to like different old Bible stories. I like kind of a lot of religious stories.
Yeah,
it's very interesting.
All comes from somewhere, I guess. But
so it might turn out that like it's all real, but not for the reasons we thought.
Right. Yeah. I still tend to generally go more towards like, or I guess lean more towards the naturalistic explanations, only just because, like, again, speaking of, changing beliefs and determinism, like with determinism, it's not saying I'm like necessarily a hardcore determinist. I guess I'm just not convinced that that's not the case. But like same with,
I think there's more like. I think we should probably go where the evidence points. Like, Like, there's probably something we could figure out.
Yeah. But then the same with like being a naturalist. It's not so much I'm just saying a blanket. There is no supernatural. I just am not convinced that there is anything.
It wouldn't be supernatural. It would be like
right.
expanded science.
Right. Just things we don't currently understand. Yeah.
Like we have like quantum science. We're starting to figure out. So that's like a deep, minute layer of physics. So what if there's something that on a wider scale, where does science get real wacky when you go to bigger scales, or where like dimensions overlap or something?
Yeah.
There seems to be a whole category of information that like our science just doesn't have a need for, apparently.
Yeah, it's like, so I don't care. Yeah.
Like kind of beyond our reality. What is it? What does beyond our reality mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It's weird.
Like physical reality or like perception reality.
Yeah. I think that's been an important thing for me, like as far as like my changing beliefs, because I used to be, what I would currently consider, having very much a like God of the gaps kind of way of looking at reality. It's like, we can't, things that we can't understand. Like that's clearly, whether you want to say it's God or just some other kind of supernatural force, angels, demons, the devil himself, or the spirit, or whatever you want to call it. But then I just kind of got to the point where kind of occurred to me, it's like, it's like, I don't know if we can consider, the limit and the just current limit, because again, that's always changing, but I don't think we can consider the current limit of human comprehension and understanding as some sort of like magical barrier between the natural and the supernatural. It's like, just because it's beyond our understanding doesn't mean it's on some other actual plane. It's just like, I mean, there's a lot of things that it could be, but I don't think it's good to just assume, like, I think a lot of people do that. And I know I did, where I would say, well, it's beyond our understanding. That must mean it's, because clearly humans being like the pinnacle of creation and on the entire natural world.
Yeah, it's pretty arrogant. Yeah. Like, why do we assume that, like, if it's beyond our understanding, it's magic? Like, you know what I mean?
I mean, I try to think, because like humans, like we're beyond the comprehension of like an earthworm, at least. So does that, but that doesn't mean we're supernatural. It just means earthworms have a certain limit of comprehension. So like I said, there are certain things that, so that's because that's one of the pushbacks
to an earthworm, like our movement, like
or like having eyes, or
no, like to an earthworm, like its scale of living is like such a small, tiny world. And so it's used to like seeing things with like however it sees things a certain distance away. So when we're all moving our giant gangly asses around, and imagining it can look up and see us, like as far as like his comprehension, like there's this giant like skin bag that's like popping in and out of existence. like that's how far away we're going, that like their brain just goes, I don't even, that's not a thing anymore, and then it just comes
it's back
in, so it's gotta be trippy as fuck.
Oh man, to be an earthworm for a minute.
No wonder they're so terrified when you like flick them and they're like, oh my god.
Yeah, they start like curling up and like,
finger just came out of the void and almost killed me.
Just for some reason in my head, the phrase that must be in their minds, it's like, oh, God just fingered me. But that's something different.
God.
Please, no means no, God. Anyway, so
it's so weird. Like, just begging God to fill you up and just like.
All right, so
this
is completely off topic, but connected to what we're talking about now.
It's like Stockholm syndrome.
A little bit, yeah. But I was watching a video. It was Drew from Genetically Modified Skeptic being interviewed on Deep Drinks podcast. You ever watch that show?
Yeah, now and then.
Yeah, it's really good. So anyway, he was talking about this video he did about this guy. I forget his name. His first name. Actually, I don't even remember his first name. But this like Christian guy who's doing like, it's one of these things like it's like he's trying to make it look like it's not gay conversion therapy, but it kind of totally is. And he like has this whole like online like course and program that's supposed to be for like teens and youths to like go through, but it's like you would expect for anything that's even conversion therapy adjacent, like just completely fucked up. And so, but they were talking about one of the scriptures that the guy was talking about, like as far as like why, certain sexual sins are like so bad. I don't remember like if this actually was explicitly said in a passage in the Bible, or if I do definitely remember hearing this concept, but basically the idea of, since you are a member of the body of Christ, then any sin you commit with your body, you're basically making God commit. You're basically involving a member of God's body in with your sin. So Drew like kind of made the point, like, so Drew basically made the point, okay, if that's the case, then you're essentially graping God. Good thing about that, involving someone in a sexual act that they did not consent to, like with their body. Like, I didn't think we could do that to God, and that's kind of gross. That's part of their theology, that's even a thing that can happen.
Wait, repeat that. What was it? What's the theology?
Okay, that being ourselves a member of the body of Christ, and I just love the irony of the double entendre of the word, the meaning of member in this context, but we are a member of the body of Christ. And it says I think there actually is something in the Bible about this. I just can't remember where, but it's something about like whenever we commit some sort of sin with our body, like we are as a member of the body of Christ, like we're involving like Christ in that sin, like in our body, what is for like a part of his body or something. I don't remember the exact wording, but it's that general concept.
It's basically Jesus jerking off via people. Is that what?
It depends if he likes it. Maybe, I don't know.
No, and he's done something to his own body through another person.
No, it's more a person is doing it to his body against his will, and that's why Drew made the point. It's kind of grapey. So
yeah,
which like I never thought about for several reasons, I guess.
There's a lot of layers there. There's a lot of layers to why that is. It's very revealing why that's okay to people. I mean, like myself included, for this kind of stuff.
Yeah. But I don't want to get too sidetracked on that, because that was
okay.
Yeah, but yeah, it was hard. So back to death.
Let's go back to death.
I mean, I was almost there once, and that was several times too many. But it's kind of with me. But it's kind of with me now. Just like I said, ever since surviving cancer, it's one of those things like I just like think about a lot. Like especially now, with one of the biggest things. Like so, there's a few different places I'm thinking to go from here. We could either talk about like, do you think there is an afterlife, and if so, or if not, how does that kind of color how you view this life? Like, what do we like? Why is death even a thing? I mean, that could be like its a whole own topic. Or so maybe just start there. Like, do you believe in any kind of afterlife?
I believe there are possibilities for things that happen next. Like some theoretical science that shows that things might continue because we're not sure what awareness or consciousness is. So I think it's more likely there isn't. There are some indications that things are going on with reality that we're just starting to understand. So I don't know. I haven't written it off, but I'm also not assuming.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah. Again, this is like I mentioned with a few other things before. It's one of those things like I don't really see any real reason to believe there is.
Yeah.
So basically I'm just not convinced that there is anything. So
Well, the only thing
I think
that could be convincing is that other people think that there is.
yeah, and or like the experiences people have, like near death experiences. But I want to get into those in a minute. Some things to say about those, but just with the whole afterlife question, it's one of those things like I just don't really. Again, this is just based on our current understanding, and I know the limitations, but I just don't see, like, the more I've learned about the way, like, reality, or at least our perception of it, or whatever slice of reality we can actually see, the way it seems to work, like, I'm particularly influenced by some of the work and like lectures and stuff by Sean Carroll.
Yeah.
And there's someone else that he was in a debate about near-death experiences with. I'm just completely blanking on his name.
Deepak.
Yeah, no, it was someone else who was like on Sean's side debating a couple other people about it. So I think this guy's an atheist, but at least doesn't believe in like an afterlife or near-death experiences or soul or all that. That's part of it, because like Sean Carroll basically said, like, I don't remember his exact words, and it's one of those things, like, even as he was explaining it, a lot of it was just like over my head. But he said basically, we figured out pretty much like what everything in you is made of. And it's like, and we figured out how things kind of interact with each other. And basically, on our diagram of how the human body and the mind and everything works, there's no gap that needs to be filled by a soul. Like, we just don't have that gap anywhere. So it's not saying, again, you can't say because of that definitively there is no soul. But it's just like, we don't see a need for one to explain what we do see and how we like act and interact and everything. So it's like, okay. But and to me that makes sense, because it's like, yeah, because like you said, the reason we believe in an afterlife is because so many other people do. And I think that's just one of the many things, like gods and deities themselves, people came up. It's just another one of those stories that people came up with, millennia ago, because yeah, I get it. I mean, the idea of like you dying and that's it, like, that sucks. That was something I had to deal with, one, when I thought, I honestly, like, when I still had cancer and was like pretty convinced that I was dying, like, I honestly don't remember at that point what I thought about like afterlife. Like, I still believed in God at that point. So I guess, having been like a universalist when I was still a Christian, I probably just assumed like, yeah, it's all good. Like, whatever's on the other side, it's just all good. I have no idea what it is, but hey, it'll probably be fine. But
I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's fine.
So I wasn't. Yeah, so I wasn't. So it's I've heard other people say, like, and the way I've put it before is like, I'm not so much like afraid of death. It's really more, I'm just, the part that bums me out is just the whole not being alive part. And because as rough as life can be sometimes, I generally enjoy being alive. I want to live as long as possible, and there's obviously certain things, like when I was gone, whenever it is that I am gone, if it were possible for me to miss things, then I would miss it. But then that's the other weird thing to think about, is like, because where I am currently, just thinking that there is no afterlife, that like when you die, like that's literally it. It's not like I don't have any soul or energy that's gonna go somewhere else and my consciousness will live on somewhere else. Like, no, where I'm at right now, it's like, no, death is like, that's just it. Like, so that whole idea of like, oh, like like my brain will kind of naively at first like have the question like, what's it going to be like to not exist? It's like, well, it's not going to be like anything, because
it's like
okay, but what's that going to be like? Nothing.
Like,
so like I keep having this back and forth with my own brain. Yeah,
I can't conceive of not being aware.
Mm-hmm.
But I can tell you that, like, when I passed out in the air carrier helicopter after my accident, like I came to slightly and then I was out. There was just black when I went out. Like I remember coming to out of nothing and then passing out back into nothing. It was like coming back into existence. Fuck, did I have a near-death experience?
Maybe. Yeah.
So
I want to talk about near-death experiences, but real quick. So it sounds like I guess we're both on the whole like probably like at least from what we can tell, probably not an afterlife. But the way I like to put it, it's like I'm open to being pleasantly surprised. Because again, I think whatever it is, like there doesn't really seem to be anything we can do to affect what it is or where we go. And like as much as religions would like to say we can, like I just don't. Again, I don't see any evidence of any god or deity or anything else who actually is in control of said afterlife, who's actually given us very clear instructions on this is what it's going to be like, and if you want it to be a certain way, this is what you got to do. Like we don't really have any of that. So
and
I kind of feel like if it's there, it's just going to be what it is. And
if it's there, religion doesn't get you there. Like there's because we made those up. Like all of the like religion stuff to do, like we made that up. Like we built a temple because like we thought God told us to do it that way. But you know what else? Yeah, like it's equally as likely. Like we made it up. We made it up because it was too much of an all the time existential crisis to like be aware enough to realize how easy it is to die.
Right.
Like animals, like the reason why they just go and do their animal things and their different cycles and stuff is because like they don't know how bad it is. Or, they're not smart enough to have the bigger picture of like I can't be in this kind of spot in the forest because that's where things get eaten. Like,
and getting eaten seems to be bad, even though I eat things all the time. But it doesn't seem to mind.
I think we got too smart for our own good, and so religion was to help us be okay with death. And
big part of it,
and give us like a institutionalized hope to keep moving towards the future. Like there's a hope for survival of some kind.
And I guess so related to that, I would say part of the whole, like whether you want to call it stories or concepts, or I guess like with near-death experiences, I don't know if I guess you can't really say that's something we've invented. Because I mean, these are experiences that people are having. I think maybe the story and the invention comes around like the explanation for.
Yeah, it's like maybe it's the narrative we give ourselves that we give ourselves for that experience.
Yeah, or maybe in a certain way we kind of have invented at least like kind of the way they play out, because like with the studies that have been done on near-death experiences, usually what the person sees is pretty much based on whatever like their culture or like their religion or like what they view of like. So it's like if someone's a Christian or is in a predominantly Christian area and they have a near-death experience, they see Jesus or angels or demons but like a Hindu person, like they'll see like whatever is in their pantheon or their version of the afterlife. Like you never see like a Muslim. Well, maybe a Muslim might see Jesus because he's part of their thing, but you never see like a Hindu like see Jesus. Like a Christian never sees Buddha. Or
here's a crazy thing. All right, so like we know the UAP stuff is real. We know that they're out there, and we know that like we don't exactly know what they are or who's flying them. We know some things, we don't know a ton. Damn it, I lost my train of thought again.
So the UAPs, see them, don't know what they
are.
Oh,
yeah. So they are a particular kind of thing, but depending on what the biggest the biggest change in how people see it is based on like region of the world. If they see it in if they interpret it as a supernatural thing, their descriptions and the way they describe it, how they felt, tend to be in line with their spiritual traditions in that area.
Makes sense.
Sometimes there've been cases where people saw the same thing, like the same whatever in the sky, and they had very different interpretations of what they saw. It's not like it's filtered just through two different eyeballs and brains. Not that kind of distinction, but like somebody was square, or it was a triangle, and like those are mutually exclusive. Like you can't be like it was like a dodecagon or something like that. And like somebody goes, no, it's a circle. It's like, well, yeah, it's pretty much a circle. Like,
yeah. Well, I guess if it's a pyramid shape, like from one angle, it can look like a triangle, and another angle like a square.
Or somebody sees like a chariot, and somebody else sees a dog. Like
Yeah. Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah,
so there's like a weird consciousness component to things that like are supposed to be very different, but like function really similar. Like what's all that?
Mm-hmm.
But no, yeah, like people's NDE descriptions tend to be very much like the culture they came from.
Yeah. But yeah, so the more I've been learning about those, I guess not even necessarily learning about NDEs in particular, but again, just how the body functions, like how reality, like our understanding of like physical reality, the way things work and interact, and the kind of form our experiences. Like, so I mentioned before this debate with like Sean Carroll and this other guy whose name I cannot remember, debating two other guys whose names I can also not remember. But one of them had written a book. I guess he, like years ago, had like a near-death experience and wrote a book about his, but then also all the work and studies about near-death experiences. Well, it turns out a lot of the stuff, like there's like the famous story about like the patient, like basically like dying on the operating table, and then he like, but from his experience, he's like floating out of his body and around the hospital, and he sees like a red shoe on the roof or something, and then he comes to and it's like, and he tells someone about it. Says, oh yeah, I saw a red shoe up on the roof. Then someone goes up there and like, oh my gosh, there's a red shoe up here. That story apparently was like not very well like corroborated, or it wasn't very well like established that actually happened. It was just like one person said this happened, but there was no actual.
Yeah, there's a lot of enthusiasm.
Nothing substantial
in the initial documentation of it, that it makes a lot of, it's like a serious kind of scientific look into it kind of impossible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like so basically from not true, or we couldn't know anyway because dumbasses whipped it up.
Yeah, so from my understanding, and if anyone out there knows any different, please correct me, but from my understanding, it's like for all the NDE cases that have been looked into, at best, they just couldn't be verified, if not just outright debunked and discredited at worst. But
yeah, like a more plausible explanation.
Yeah,
like we're not saying for sure it was this scientific thing that happened, but like it's way more likely it was this than like magic cloud goblins or something.
Yeah, or they just found out the story was just completely made up. Like there was
there's that too.
Yeah, but yeah, and pretty much like everywhere in between. But in this debate, the guy who wrote the book, like I don't remember exactly what his profession was, but it was some sort of like medical or scientific professional. Like, so it's like he kind of knew what he was talking about. So when he was because like one of the points of contention, it like I guess you could say like the near-death experience skeptic side will say, well, it's just like your brain's being deprived of oxygen. It's like all kinds of crazy stuff happen. It's just going to start hallucinating. So, but the guy was saying, no, but when I was going back and like remembering when things were happening and like at what point of dying or death I was in, I don't remember the specifics, but he was basically saying at that point, like whatever brain activity you said would explain this wasn't even active at that time. Like this was like the complete wrong time for this kind of thing to be happening the way you're describing it. But then like the guy who was in the debate, like on Sean Carroll's side, we'll call him Steve. And actually, his name actually might be Steven. So yeah, we'll call him Steve. Steve basically said, okay, but part of the problem is also your recollection of like time like is completely off. So you could say now, oh, I remember this vision happened at this point when my brain was doing this. It's like you could be completely wrong about that. So it basically just like in a few sentences, he completely undercut this guy's like most like primary fundamental claim about this whole thing. But then the debate kept going for a while because it kind of had to. But it's like at that point, it's like,
yeah,
he just ate your lunch right there, dude. But
like you can't dismiss it, you know, for all the reasons Sean Carroll said. But it's also really fascinating. Like, why did that person have such an elaborate experience of it?
Yeah,
you know, like,
and that's an interesting question. Yeah,
what is going on in the mind that like it's doing that? Like,
yeah, and I want to get to that, but real quick, another part of like why I'm still skeptical about it. Again, the more I'm learning about the natural world, it's like, okay, even just things that we consider basic, like, okay, they say, I'm having this experience, and they talk about things that they see and things that they hear. But what we're learning about like vision and hearing and like all the other senses we have, like those all rely on very physical properties and processes and like physical organs and light waves. So like if you do have a soul, how can a spirit interact with like physical light waves and like physical sound waves? Like what sort of mechanism does a soul have to process light in apparently the same way that our physical eyeballs do and hear things the way our physical ears do? Like how does
all of that experience like of, you know, like having all that information come in from your senses, all that experience is really just happening in our brain, like, and the nervous system. So
right.
But
then if a person
actually, like if you could, I guess my point is, if you could, people have that experience because their brain is doing that thing. So could you also just make a person's brain do that thing and then they have that experience?
No, what I'm saying is like, are you saying this is why the people are having the experience? Because I understand like that's why they're hallucinating in the way they are, because their brain is using like references from things they experience. I'm saying if there actually is a real soul, how does that soul see? And how does that soul hear if it doesn't have the physical apparatuses or
Maybe the soul is the experience of it. Like the experience of it is it's something separate, but it's also the culmination of just all the sensory input and nervous system stuff that's going on.
Yeah, but I guess I don't see like how a soul could have that separate from those physical apparatuses, though. Because it's like, you know, if a person
it wouldn't be tied to it.
What do you mean?
Like when I woke up in the helicopter, I had like the distinct feeling that I came from somewhere, but also it was like I just didn't exist before then. It was a really weird feeling. Like I like popped back into existence, kind of what it felt like. Also, I came from somewhere. And that kind of feel, I don't know how to describe that feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Like the feeling like there was a before.
Mm.
I felt like I popped back into existence, but then I had like a sense of there was a before time.
Mm.
I don't know. And all of that could be like the brain systems just coming back online.
Well, yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. Like I know, like to me, or I don't actually know, but to me that's what makes sense. Like, yeah, that's what's actually happening. But again, like my questions are about like if that's not just like the brain doing weird stuff, and that's why we have those experiences. I'm saying like for the people who actually do believe in like the soul and like the near death experiences are genuine. Like if that is their soul literally just floating around, how is their soul seeing things without physical eyes? How is their soul hearing things without physical ears? Same with like when people talk about like seeing ghosts. Like that's one of the things that like always that seems weird to me is like why are these ghosts like wearing clothes? Like do clothes have spirits? Like so is like the shirt that someone was wearing, did it also have a soul that followed the person? Like why do, or even a body, or even the physical body that the ghosts have? Like why do spirits look like physical bodies? Like that.
It could be the past replaying out, and for some reason we can see it. Um,
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, that could be an explanation of like what's actually happening. But again, I'm just saying, like from the point of view of people who believe, no, this, like who think that ghosts are, in the sense that what most people mean when they say a ghost is like, oh,
yeah,
this is the spirit of so and so who died. It's like, well, why does their spirit look like their physical body, and why is it wearing the clothes that they were wearing? It's like that just to me like makes no sense that would be how it would actually be, you know?
maybe science is just doing a weird thing right there that our brain sees as that.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, I'm sure that's what's actually happening, but yeah, I'm just wondering, like, this is more like an I guess, internal critique. I don't know if that's
Yeah,
necessarily what it is, but
well, the
this
experience
is
is
this is
so,
more like my questions for the people who do genuinely believe in this kind of
okay.
stuff. How do you explain that kind of thing?
The weird thing is like those experiences are so real to the people, and
Mm-hmm.
like they couldn't be convinced otherwise. So
Right.
in a way, it doesn't matter if it's not really real because like they couldn't believe otherwise. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
from like in their narrative, that is how it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, but I would argue it still does matter if it's real or not, because there also have been a lot of people who have had those experiences, but then have later, like after thinking about it and like learning more about different things, they're like, oh, okay, I was just seeing things
Right.
that wasn't
But like at
real.
that moment,
But,
they
yeah,
couldn't be convinced otherwise. Like maybe in the future,
yeah,
or like when they're adamant, when people are adamant about something, they're not going to be able to be convinced otherwise. They have to
hmm,
like be willing, be open to the idea they could be wrong.
yeah, yeah. And I guess this is also maybe just another area where you're perhaps like a little like nicer or more charitable than I am. Maybe it's just like the way my brain works. But like if I'm if from how I view things, like something just is not the case. Like I have a hard time. Like obviously, I'm not going to be like a dick to somebody who comes up to me and like because I have had people tell me that about different like supernatural, whether they want to call it ghosts or other sort of paranormal or demons or whatever kind of experience. Like they'll tell me about it. It's like, and I don't start berating them and tell them like scientifically why they're wrong and here's what was really happening. I just I listen to them like you said, it was real to them, so that's kind of how I take it. But at least as far as like my brain works, I just can't go to like because like to me it does matter if it was real or not. So it's hard for me to kind of I don't know this. I hate to say like play along with it because that makes it sound kind of like demeaning and condescending. but I just can't think of a better way to express it right now. Is that making sense?
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
but we don't know for sure they're wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, like it's impossible for them to be sure that they're right, you know? Like, so
Yeah. Yeah,
it
but so I guess maybe that's where my brain has a problem is when they do go to that place of like, I saw this definitely happened. Like, you cannot tell me this was not real. And my brain's is like, actually, I can, but I'm just not going to right now because I don't see the point. But
yeah.
yeah.
Well, and they can't be in that moment. You know, like if that's their attitude, then like they're bragging, they're closed-minded. Like, that's how far gone that is. Like,
Yeah, I guess to me this just falls under that larger category, and like I think a lot of things just with religion or theism or whatever kind of fall into this. It's like even if like both sides agree that we can't say for sure,
yeah,
then the side of like so but then this person who does believe in whatever supernatural or paranormal experience they had, it's like they say, well, we can't know for sure. So, but they're only really looking at the side of, well, you can't tell me that I'm wrong for sure, so I'm going to go ahead and say that I know for sure that I'm right because you can't disprove it. And it's like, okay, you can technically do that, but then it's like, but if and again, maybe
enforce it. Like, you can't like I'm claiming this for everyone. This is true, and if you disagree, you know there'll be bloodshed eventually.
Yeah, I guess like the attitude that for real though. But the attitude I come across sometimes is like, it's like this, the way the steps go is like, okay, we both agree that neither of us can know for sure. I'm going to claim that I do know it's this thing for sure anyway, and you're not allowed to disagree with me because you can't know for sure that I'm wrong. But I'm like, so to me, like my brain is like, well, that's not fair that you can claim to know, but I'm not allowed to disagree because just
right. Yeah, that's
am I making sense?
Yeah, that's dumb.
Yeah. So
you're like,
I mean, it's something I posted on my Lesser Miracle page
it's
yesterday.
Like, it's not the brag you think it is to be able to just do like, you can't prove me wrong, so I'm correct, and like that's meaningless.
Like,
no, that's not a powerful position like you think it is.
Yeah, it's even like people who don't necessarily take that kind of more aggressive approach, but the way some others will say to me is like, well, I just don't understand why you would write this off. I'm like, it's one of those things like I can't help what I am or am not convinced of, and like
like you're not writing
generally the way my brain works. It's like if I'm not convinced it's real, I'm not going to say it's real.
Yeah,
I'll say
but you're not just writing it off. It's like, I just don't believe that's true. It's not like you're like, I won't even consider it. You're like, just like, I'm aware. I've had I've had it expressed to me in many forms. I'm very aware of what it is, and I no longer find it convincing. In fact, the more I learned about it, the less convinced I was.
Right. So put that on your toast and smoke it. Something.
You can't spell religion without ignorance.
All right, we might need to clip that. Oh, that's good. So I posted about this on my Lesser Miracle page. Might have been today, actually. I don't know. Time is weird. Maybe it was yesterday. But with the whole like notion of like what like strong atheism versus like weak atheism or agnostic versus Gnostic atheism. It's like for a while, like I was even in the camp of saying, okay, well, I'm not saying there is no God. I'm just saying I don't believe there is. I'm not convinced either way. And I was trying to be very, I don't want to say passive about it, but maybe you could say passive, but just sort of like withholding judgment on it. Maybe, well, that's not even, I was definitely not withholding judgment on it. That's not accurate. But the more I've thought about it, like a while ago, I actually started becoming a lot more comfortable with claiming, strong atheism, if you will, but like, because I will, like, if I am honest with what I actually think, what I actually think is there is no God. Like gods, like, just do not exist. Now, because the pushback that often gets is like, well, you can't prove there isn't, so you shouldn't say there isn't. But at the same time, we have all these theists who also claim, like, almost like as a badge of honor, you can't prove God does or doesn't exist. It's like, I mean, you kind of should be able to if you did, but that's beside the point, but not really. It's actually pretty critical. But so it's like, so they're saying I can't say there isn't a God because I can't prove it, but they're allowed to say definitively that there is, but they can't prove that there is. So, like, if they can make their definitive claim without proof, I should be able to make mine without proof.
But not in their version, not in their version of the story.
Yeah, but even like that's how a lot of atheists talk to. Again, like this is how I used to be too. Is it like a lot?
Yeah.
So many atheists like, oh, that's ridiculous to say there is no God. You can't claim that. It's like, no, why the fuck not?
Because it scares them.
Like literally, like since I've switched to like just claiming there is no God, it's not like something like bad things started happening or like
well
the universe started breaking.
They can't be equally worth considering. Like clearly, there's one that that is you shouldn't think about, or like, or fight against it.
Yeah.
I don't know that people don't like the big unknown.
Oh yeah, it's true. Like I said, I totally get that. Because speaking of things that atheists say that actually kind of get on my nerves, this is something that, like, getting back to the whole like death and like lack of afterlife and like when you die, that's just it, lights off, nothing.
That's definitely what it appears to be.
Yeah. But honestly, like that a lot of times kind of freaks me out for lots of reasons. But I feel like a lot of atheists, like whether they're just trying to like sound tough or whatever, they'll say like, oh, afterlife, like that's just for people who are too weak and too scared to think about like no longer existing. I'm like, I mean, maybe it's just because I'm relatively more recently coming off believing there is an afterlife, but it's almost like a lot of atheists think, oh, being scared of like worried about no longer existing, like that's such a weakness. That's why people come up with stories about after, like even like now no longer believing in after.
If they're like being truthful, it's weird they didn't do that.
Right? Yeah, because like I said, still the idea of dying like still kind of freaks me out. Like,
yeah,
and it is something that that has like kept me up at night a lot, thinking about and like contemplating, and like not just for the experience, or I guess lack thereof, that death is going to be, but tying it into another topic I was really wanting to get into tonight, like just how that affects my view of this life. And like, does that mean that there really is no actual meaning to this life? Like, just knowing that, like, knowing or assuming or that this is the reality for every human. Like, eventually, all humans or any other conscious beings will be dead, and there will be none of us left, and all of the things that we've done, like, will be completely erased. Like, and if not well before then, certainly by the anticipated expected heat death of the universe, where pretty much everything just stops and nothing really is doing anything anymore. So there is going to come a point where, like, yeah, literally nothing that anyone ever does will matter anymore. Because, like, at least for now, we can say, well, it's not the things that you did in life, they will still matter for, your children or your friends and family who are still around and the people who remember you. It's like, okay, but eventually they're all going to be gone too. So,
but every time we interact with people, part of us gets embedded in their story about them and the world, and so that stuff accumulates over time. And so, like, like us as individuals or as recognizable people don't get passed on, but everything we put out there in our interactions with people um, does continue on in them.
Hmm. Yeah.
So
Well, yeah, for sure. Like at least for now, but like I said, but eventually even that's going to be like come to an end.
but why does
But
that
the way
matter though if that's the case? Like that's pretty cool to be part of like the humanity for as long as it continues.
hmm
We
yeah.
live on as part of them.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, that's cool, but like I said, it's just when it comes to like the whole idea of like, does anything like really matter if that happens? But the thing is, like, as the way I
Yes
think
and
about
no.
it, like, yeah, and we'll get to that too. But before that, but the way I when I think about it, like even if it was the case that humans are actually going to exist like in physical reality just eternally, like the universe is going to go on forever, humans are just always going to exist, and even in the case where even if this is would be a pipe dream in any situation, but like even like my memory will always exist for whatever reason, like my kids will tell their kids, and like my friends will tell their kids and their friends, and like so for as long as humanity endures, there will be people who remember me and
Hmm.
like keep my memory going. But then there's that part of me is like, okay, but if I'm not going to be conscious anymore to know that, then why does that matter that my memory is going to continue
Well,
after
does it
I die?
like would it matter to you right now? I mean,
Well, that's what I'm saying is like, I'm like, if I'm not going to know anything after I'm dead, why would anything that happens after I'm dead matter to me? You know, like I'm not saying it does. I'm just saying that's a thought that I have a
yeah.
lot.
Well, your
Like something
influence
that,
continues.
yeah. Which now, obviously, specifically like having kids. Okay, like there is definitely a part of me that is very concerned about how things continue after I'm gone, because I definitely want things to be well for them, but also knowing, okay, but once I'm dead, I won't care anymore because I won't anything anymore. you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just feel like all this is much bigger than us, and
Hmm. Yeah. So, like I said, that's
contributing to the much bigger than us is, I don't know. That's kind of a spiritual feeling. Um,
yeah. If anything is, yeah, for sure.
but then like I don't want to put a story on it because I feel like that kills it.
Mm.
Just
Ooh.
just
Yeah.
recognizing that experience of thinking that, and you're like, oh, that's a thing that feels
Mm.
important, and then
Hmm.
just be like, wonder what that was, and just move on. But like
Yeah.
not like you're trying, like you value it, but you're like, that was something. I don't know what that was. And
Yeah.
I'm sure if it's important, it'll pop back up again.
Right. Right.
um,
Yeah. Because, but yeah, but like, so that, like the ideas I was just like talking about there is like, that's not necessarily like a headspace I'm in a whole lot. Like most of the time I am very much just like, if you want to say like in the moment, or even like looking ahead, and obviously thinking about my kids a lot and wanting to make sure things are good for them, like obviously like while I'm still here for them, definitely like after I'm
yeah,
gone. And same with even like just like earth and like humanity and like life here in general, like I hope after I'm gone that humans and like other creatures, because as to the chagrin of many humans in the particularly southeast, as we were mentioning before, like other species are going to catch up with us in as far as like the whole like our level of like intelligence and interaction and technology and development. And like there will probably in the future be, I don't know, my guess is there will be like multiple species on the level of what we consider now like the threshold of like being human and like being a person versus just an animal, which we
that's an
are.
interesting thought.
Yeah.
That
Like,
did kind of happen with all the different early humanoids that
yeah.
either went
Hmm.
extinct or they joined with a lot of them joined with the larger gene pool because they could interbreed. Uh,
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
the Nosians or something like that. They're kind
Mm.
of like um, not midget people,
Yeah.
dwarf people. I don't know. The pygmies. They're like pygmy
Yeah.
size.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How there's like Neanderthals
Yeah.
DNA in everyone, and
Yeah. But even like just again, just trying to like remove our mindset from that whole like humans are special. I mean, just look at like the rest of like the animal kingdom and like how many other animals are on like similar levels as far as like cognitive abilities, use of tools, like socialization, interaction, things like that. I mean,
maybe that's what the non-human intelligence beings things are. Maybe they're things that evolved on Earth before us.
mm, yeah,
In the ocean would be something we wouldn't know about. Like if they've been super advanced since we were like banging rocks together.
yeah. In my head, I just had to. No one expects the Spanish Inquisition, but I couldn't think of an analog for ocean people. So, yeah, but like that kind of it's just like my friend of the show, Kiffany, was like messaging me earlier, and just this is how she is sometimes. She'll just randomly throw in these like weird phrases and she said, and always remember if you're still looking for Jesus, remember to check behind the couch. And I was just like, oh, he's always in the last place I look. So, so yeah, would not have thought to look for humanoid things in the ocean. But
You know
yeah,
what's crazy? I just thought of it would be a lot easier for something to evolve to intelligence in the ocean, because think about all the crazy shit that happens on the surface. We got hurricanes and tornadoes and snowstorms and like droughts, and like there's places in the ocean where nothing happens.
Right.
And hasn't
think of like
for like millions of years.
yeah, I mean, and think of it like some animals have like dolphins, like they're like some people are saying like potentially like on par with humans as far as intelligence. They say like it's basically just a matter of their physical bodies. Like if they had like limbs and appendages like we did, and like a vocal tract system like we did to communicate with language like we do, they'd probably be like right with us, if not, maybe even past. But
what if they're like failed like hybrid experiments by the water people, and so like we're like man, they're so smart, but to them they're all mentally challenged. What are you talking about?
It's like we wanted to keep our dogs, so we tried to turn them into fish, but they're these like weird mammal fish hybrid things. It's just
they're like super intelligent, but they only have flippers, so they can't do anything about it. So they're like super cranky about it.
Yeah, so like we tried to do that whole thing in like Alien Resurrection when like they came across all like the failed Ripleys, and they're just like burn it with fire, but then we remembered we're in the ocean, burning things with fire doesn't work. So dolphins.
No, but that's crazy. That would make sense that we were just the next thing that evolved, and the reason why they're hanging around and why they like don't bother, they're kind of hands off on people, is because like the oceans are still for all the pollution and stuff, and a lot of if you are something that lives down there and you're that advanced, you're fine.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Or they're in or on the dark side of the moon. That's a thing for another time.
Yeah.
Because the moon might be hollow.
There's that too. Yeah. But yeah, so I guess like for you, like if you don't think there's an afterlife, like I guess for you, like how does that affect how you view life, how you live life? I mean, I know for me, it's like I said, like I'm not always in that headspace of it's ultimately doesn't matter, because like I'm still like just in that like day to day. I'm still like, okay, I have to work today, still have to eat, have to like take the kids to school, pay bills, like try to find time to enjoy myself, like do this show,
I think,
yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah, so there still seems to be something in me that says, like, even if I don't cognitively agree with the idea that there is some ultimate purpose, it's like I still behave as if there's some purpose. I mean, maybe that's just determinism. Maybe that's just like how we're wired, and we just kind of can't help. And like the reason we do those things is not necessarily for any purpose, but it's more just like, well, species that act like what they do matters will tend to survive longer. So that's just the trait that nature selected for, and that's why we have it. I don't know.
I think it's because that's the story that we like about what's happening right now. Because like
yeah,
we can measure all like down to like the smallest, tiniest particle now what's going on, right? So we know that what's going on is just whatever's happening right now is from our perspective kind of like the culmination of all of those different molecules linked up in this way, and the air is moving that way, and it smells like this because there's these particles in the air. Like meaning is something that we create about like meaning or the story we tell about what's happening. It's like how we continue to exist. Because if you're looking at it like we're just I don't know, the story that we're telling ourselves about what's happening matters. It's like, yeah, it is just science happening, but we kind of we get less interested in the idea of continuing to exist when there isn't meaning. So meaning is important to staying us for some reason.
Yeah, or at least we think it is, which is good enough, I guess.
Yeah. Because I got real close to thinking that like or something like our brains need to think like needs to act like that things have meaning because it really starts to break when there isn't. Like that's what I think I was going through before I went to the hospital was like realizing that like their meaning like reality is a story we tell ourselves is true. Like so kind of like realizing that's the case. Kind of like, well, okay, if that's true, then like that's bad for me because I start to spiral then. So,
right.
So then I went like I think that maybe the healthiest thing is that everything has meaning, but we need to figure that out for ourselves. Like I just like what meaning does that have for us? Instead of listening to other people, sell their culture, their culture's answer to it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because for me, that was one of the biggest changes in like my kind of outlook. Like after like surviving cancer and then losing my faith, and like so basically in so many ways it's like starting from scratch almost as far as like what my worldview is and what I view as like my purpose and what I actually want out of life. So it's like I simultaneously kind of really started to like it's not something I could say I completely shed but just the various expectations that I felt on myself before that, both from other people and from the God that I believed in.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like it's from like so like from the God aspect, like okay, it's like pretty obvious. Okay, I don't believe he exists anymore, therefore with him go all the expectations that I thought he had on me. It's like that's all just like immediately right out. But I was still left with people because I was like, okay, people still seem to exist and seem to have certain expectations, whether of me in particular or just of ourselves as a species in general, or just our culture slightly more in particular. Because I also realized that like much of what my expectations and what I wanted in life were like for the large part were things that I was supposed to want my life to look like.
Yeah.
Because I remember like when I first got diagnosed with cancer, and I remember in the small group we were in, like I was talking, this was like before things were looking really bad. You know, it was just like, oh, it looks like I got a little tumor on my head. Well, it wasn't little, but it's like, oh, they took that off. And the other thing, they maybe got it, just keeping me on immunotherapy to make sure they kill it all. It's like, yeah, I'm probably fine now. But because like when I was in that headspace, I was just kind of thinking about, you know, I even remember specifically saying like, I hope this doesn't turn into like a like dire situation, you know, for obvious reasons, but also just for like, again, like still hoping to survive it. But what I don't want is that I don't know if I say I was like afraid of it, or with something about this idea, just I had an aversion to was the whole, well, now I survived this ordeal. Now I feel like, you know, I got this new lease on life. Now I'm going to like go out and like, I'm going to like climb a bunch of mountains, write a book, you know, completely turn my life around, have all these ambitions. Like I'm like, that just all sounds exhausting. I'm like, so I remember just like joking, like, so that, other than just, you know, not wanting to be in a life or death situation, it's like, just for that reason, I hope this doesn't turn into that. And then of course it did. But then, yeah, coming off of it, that was like my big realization. It's just like, I don't need to have like a bunch of like big ambitions in my life. Like, I just don't. Those are things that I felt like other people like thought I should have. It's like, now that doesn't mean like what the way things are. It doesn't mean I don't want things to maybe be better or certain things to improve. Like, there's always things that could be better, can improve, but I'm not like, because like before, like especially like people who know me and like my upbringing, like pretty, you know, upper class straight white dude. Like I did really well in school, at least for most of it, until I got about most of the way through high school, and it's like I just hit a fucking wall. But yeah, I mean,
that's what happened to me too, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, say, like when I was in like definitely like all through elementary school, like I maybe sometimes they would say it explicitly, but I always had this feeling the way like my parents and like adults kind of viewed me as like, okay, this kid's gonna be successful, you know.
Yeah.
So just the fact that I'm not,
I can really, it sucks.
Yeah. So basically, it's like to me, like given like again, like my upbringing, like I said, you want to talk about privilege? Like I have, like I had it all, and I still have a lot in a lot of ways. But it's like, so basically, given like my upbringing and all I was given, all that I was started with, all the opportunities I have, like the fact that I'm not stupid rich kind of feels like a disappointment in a lot of ways. But then I was like, but so then like as I said, like with my whole like mind like shifting on a lot of things, just as I was thinking about that, I was like, okay, but do I actually need to be though? Like, is it okay that I'm not? And also like never, and again, that's just by like American standards. Like if you're talking about like global standards, like just like by today's standards, you know, let alone all of human history, like I've got to be like in the upper, I don't know, like fraction of a percent, like probably a vast majority of humans who have ever lived would probably kill to have my life. Like with all the things that I do have. So it's like, so yeah, sure. If I want to like achieve more, be like more successful or richer or something, like, yeah, sure. I probably could if I knew how or had the ambition to, but it's also like the fact that I'm not like is okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the world looks clearer from the bottom. You're like,
Yeah,
oh,
I
there's not
definitely,
much of it.
yeah, yeah, I definitely feel like, I guess you could say maybe ironically, but in a way, I feel like I can identify more with, how like Jesus refers to like the least of these. Like like I said, I've never actually been in like super like dire straits. Never been like homeless or anything like that. But
Mhm.
I feel like I maybe have more of an idea or an awareness of like those people than probably had I been actually as successful as I was like supposed to be. Like maybe have been a bit more like out of touch
Yeah.
with
No, yeah.
things. I don't know. Not that I'm saying all rich people are assholes, and that's obviously not the case, but
Like,
I'm just saying it's easier to be an asshole. I
no,
guess.
just for an example, Aaron, my wife saw somebody on Facebook had posted, um, she just found out the average American only takes 2 vacations a year,
Yeah. Hmm.
and she's like, she was shocked. I was like, I, oh my gosh, like it really is a different reality. Just if
Oh yeah.
if your circle of influence or experience doesn't overlap with it, like you have no idea what's happening there.
Hmm. Oh yeah. Like one of my favorite memes I saw recently is like it was one of those. It was supposed to be some sort of like inspirational message. It's like something along the lines of like how important it is to travel and like money shouldn't be an obstacle. It's that important. Like just buy that plane ticket and whatever. And someone commented like, "Thank you for confirming that we are in different tax brackets."
Just buy that plane ticket. No one has to eat or have health care this month. Like,
Mhm. Yeah, or another one that says something like, "Travel is a matter of like courage, not a matter of money." It's like, all right, let me know what airlines take courage as currency. Um, yeah, which as much as and we'll get to this, we keep talking about how much we're like wanting to talk about Crossroads, like the church we used to go to.
we
I
must
swear
not
we're gonna,
really want to because we know it's going to be difficult. Like,
I think it's more like I really want to. I just think I know, like knowing that, like doing those episodes, like on like sermons and sermon series, those are just going to take like more effort to actually do, as opposed to the way
oh,
we usually do the show is like we'll text each other the day of, like, "Hey, what do you want to talk about tonight?" And then we do. Um, I mean, we're professionals and plan ahead. And I mean, last time I tried to plan ahead, Matt ended up in the mental hospital. So
yeah,
lesson
man.
learned.
See, that's a prelude to the storm.
Yeah. 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 Also, sorry about that, apparently. Uh, anyway, but speaking of Crossroads, there is one thing that like the senior pastor there, Brian Tome, said that I still like and I still quote him on. Now he was saying it in the context of like why churches should do more sermon series on money, aka why it's okay for churches to keep asking for more of your money. But
Well, no, I see that's the apologetics before they ask for more money.
yeah, no, but the phrase he said, which I said, like, this is actually a fantastic point. Like I said, I still quote this. It's like if you think money doesn't matter, try not having any. Yeah. So for all these people, like, oh, money's no object. Like, if that's not really what's in your way, it's really something else. Like, no, literally, like, if you do not have money, you do not have money, and
Yeah,
and it is very hard to get more money if you do not have money.
no, that's true. That's true. Everything
So,
seems to be set up so that, like, in order to make money, you already need to have money. Uh,
mhm.
and yeah, like Aaron and I looked at she worked for several days getting a grip on our finances, and um, like we had to. The whole system seems rigged to keep people. capitalism works best when there's like a lot of people at the bottom, hardly anyone in the middle, and a lot of people at the top.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you have a giant middle class, like people won't try to rise to the top because like there'll be a middle class and it's such a big like peer group to be in that case. Like why would you want to go to like the smaller peer group? Like you know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
for survival's sake, why would you want to be in the smaller group for survival?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like there's a huge wall for us where we can't get uh there would be a long stretch of time where we would be making too much to get assistance, and
Mm.
it all kind of drops off around the same time. So like we would lose like food assistance and um, Medicaid, and SSI for Elise would drop, and
Mm.
like there's no taper off. It's just like boom, gone. And
Yeah.
so now
Mm-hmm.
suddenly we have like I can make this low amount, or I can only make this much higher amount that's kind of impossible in order to get off of assistance.
Right.
And meanwhile, just because of where we are in society, like that would be a few years before, like it'd be quite a lot of years. And at my age, like
Yeah.
mid 40s, like I couldn't get up there before I retired. And so, like,
Mm-hmm.
we're probably going to take a lot of payments under the table because uh, I'm not going to survive just exactly the way they want me to. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like my family
Yeah.
deserves better than the law allows. So
Right. Right. Yeah. Again, which is why I've become such a fan of universal basic income.
yep.
That's the thing. Because I even thought about it, and maybe this is like one of the areas of privilege I do have is like with the job I do have, like as much as well as it doesn't pay, like so many other aspects of it are great. So like I was like, if I was getting UBI checks, like and like I said, I don't know what the number is like that they're proposed, like how much this income would be, but let's just say like wild pipe dream like UBI ends up actually being more than what I'm currently making, which wouldn't be too hard, but I doubt it would get that high. Like I would still probably keep my job
Something
just
to do.
because
Yeah.
yeah, and also like I'm in such a bad situation now, like I would need that all that extra to like get myself to a place where I might actually prefer to be. But
Yeah.
but I know like there's probably a lot of people who if it was that much, they'd be like and they're like they're working a job that like sucks more than mine and pays worse, then they probably would be like, yeah, fuck this. But yeah,
Well,
like if
that
I was still like doing my like delivery driver job and
yeah.
like I was if I was yeah, that was a crazy thing. When COVID hit, between collecting unemployment and like the extra stimulus, I was actually getting more money than when I was working at what was then and actually still is my highest paying job I've ever had.
Yeah.
So,
The
for a few months, life was pretty sweet. Like I wasn't working, making more money than I ever had before, and
I forget how many I think it was like a couple million kids. The COVID money that was coming in lifted like several million kids out of poverty in the
oh,
United States.
that's cool. Hmm.
But then Trump came in and like one of his things was like, no, this is dumb. And like so he helped influence then like an expiration to it.
Yeah.
So then it ended eventually, and then shit ton of kids went back into poverty. Yay! Because that's a waste of money. Where are we going to get that money? Said all of the people with the money.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. because this is why, okay, and this is like we're way off like the death topic, like kind of more into politics, but this was like a conversation I was having with someone recently about like, well, this is why we can't raise minimum wage because then it'll make everything so much more expensive and it'll like hurt inflation so much more. And like, but the people, but like have all these companies right now making record profits, so somebody is making more money.
Yep. It's just not you.
Yeah, so I'm like, or not, and they don't have to raise prices. Like all they have to do is like take some of those record profits and give more of it back to the workers. Like it's still like the same pool of money is going to people.
Yeah.
We're just changing who it's going to. That does so therefore prices do not have to rise for that.
And like you can,
so basically
you can
like
get
so
crazy
why
rich
does
at the top? You know?
yeah so basically my question to this person was, okay, why does the people at the top making more money not mean inflation, but the people at the bottom making more money does mean inflation? How does that work?
It's weird how that works out, right? It's also
Yeah.
kind of not how inflation works, but
Yeah. Also, never mind that like when people talk about inflation in this country is where like, okay, inflation has been bad everywhere and it was delayed after COVID because of all the pent up demand. And again, this was global.
wait.
Also, for what it's worth, we've been handling it better in the United States than pretty much anywhere else in the world. But
the reason why inflation is a negative thing is because people don't have the income to pay for it.
mm-hmm.
So if we had the income to cover inflation prices, because there will be inflation sometimes.
Yeah.
No,
I'm sure there's still other like negative aspects. Even if people like within our country can still, there's still like there's probably issues with like how the dollar is compared to other currencies around the world and how that, I'm sure there's things that I don't understand with how like that affects things. But
inflation is necessary or the economy like collapses. That's just how capitalism works, is like inflation is built into it. But the challenge is when inflation starts to like rise too rapidly. Needs to get equilibrium back to the system.
Yeah. Anyway,
probably a cool way to do that, to get equilibrium back to the system when like inflation is a problem because people don't have money, to like take money from the super rich people and give it to like the people for whom inflation is a problem, and then like while the Fed is helping to do whatever magic they do to get like inflation levels where they're supposed to be, people aren't going broke at the same time. Like, it just we really do almost need an AI running things, because like why are my food benefits and like other assistance things in fucking brackets, when I get paid on a like rising and lowering scale? I don't get paid in brackets. So like,
right.
you jump from one income to a level, you make $1 more, and now all of a sudden you owe, like if you're single, there's this one category where it goes up $1 and you owe 10% more taxes.
Yeah.
And guess what? After about $650,000 a year, the progressive tax rate stops going up. So 650 grand a year, 650,000 grand.
Yeah.
650,000 a year. 37% if you're married, that's what you owe in taxes, right? If you make $9 billion a year, for example, you still only need to pay 37%. But every other like income bracket under that is progressive. So like you get punished for making more money in a way until you get to being very rich, and then it's just reward.
Yeah. Again, yeah, it's that whole middle, like what you were talking about.
It's like just it makes it not worth your time to challenge them. Interesting.
Yeah, which, and again, this sounds more like first world problem, but like my version of that whole thing was more like, as much as I talk about like how we're very much like not very well off, there's a few things that we've done that tend to be things that more like fancy rich people do, but we do anyway. Like, so like our kids are like, they've gone to like private school like the whole time for various reasons. Like people want to argue about it. I don't feel like it. But anyway, but it's only worked because like the elementary school they went to, their tuition was on a sliding scale based on income. But again, it was like brackets. So, but the problem was like throughout like all the years, because of like with my employment history and like what my ex-wife, like what she was doing for work and what we were doing with like investment properties some of the time, but not all the time. So like every year it's like we were in like a different tuition bracket. Like we just kept going up and down. But the problem is it's like your current, but it was always like based on like your current tuition was based on your prior year's tax returns. So it was always the opposite. So basically on the years where we were hardly making anything, the prior year we'd made a ton. So our tuition was always more expensive when we were making less, but it was always less when we were making more. And so, yeah, it was always, it's like, I'm like, what? They expect people to like be holding like the same job and make similar amounts year to year? What the fuck is that all about? Who does that?
I feel like it should be a sliding scale, like a truly sliding scale, where like everybody pays a certain percentage of their income for tuition. You know what I mean? So like then it's an equal burden on everyone, and like the rich people aren't like, that was easy to pay all those thousands, and then
no, because like that's it just always worked out that like we were always like. It was never like from one year, like we made like a big jump, but stayed in the same brackets. Like we were always like right near one of the borders. So it was always like a jump from one level to another. Yeah. So it's been, but yeah, fortunately, like, so again, like my daughter now she's in high school. Like it's again, a private Catholic high school, which like, even like when I was a Christian, like we weren't Catholics. I'm like, what are we doing? But it just happened to be like, it's one of the best schools in the city. And as far as private schools, for one, just at the base tuition, it's one of the cheapest of the like the good private schools, but also they do the school, like, I don't know, like their donors must be just like crazy rich. Cause like they give out so many scholarships, like basically like my daughter, like she goes there for free, like through like scholarships and whatever.
I really like it when rich people do that.
Yeah. So yeah, shout out to, well, I guess there's things about like saying publicly like where your kids go to school online, so I'll refrain. But but yeah.
So death.
Yes. Thanks for reminding me, Matt. Yeah. So oh yeah. So what I was going to ask you. So is Frank Turek right? Like, do we need to believe that our life goes on forever in order for it to actually have any kind of meaning, or for us to be able to justify giving it any kind of meaning? Or can we not do that because Dick Turek says we can't?
I think it depends if somebody needs that or not.
I just want to point out I changed his name to Dick, and you did not laugh nearly hard enough.
Well,
that was a pun.
It was expected. It was kind of
That's
expected.
true. Yeah,
I was like, that makes sense.
Yeah. To be fair, that was lame. Anyway, sorry.
No, I think some people are convinced they need it to have meaning.
Mm-hmm.
So until they can see that they don't, they do. I mean, like until they're able to see, to question whether they like do need that for meaning, then like they can't be convinced otherwise, because it's just gonna be gibberish. Like you're gonna like, you know what I mean? Like they're gonna think that person is just talking like woo nonsense.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like Frank Turek is life support for a dying ideology and like worldview and stuff. Like it. He's like anesthetizing the flock as they shuffle off to Buffalo.
That's one way to put it. Yeah, for sure.
He's the drug dealer for the opiate of the masses.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because basically, and like obviously it's not just him, but like he'll say things like, and it can be like a whole range of things. Basically, like in his worldview, without Christianity, you basically can't justify anything, which is convenient for him.
Do you know
But
how awesome the guys in that fraternity house, in the Christian fraternity, how awesome they would have thought he was if you'd have been a big deal then?
fuck.
That would have been. It would have been
I would have thought he was awesome.
like, let me press your shirts for you, sir. Like,
Let me dry clean your jeans for you, which I'm convinced he does.
I never liked those kind of people on a personal level. So, like, there was certain pastor types where I was not buying what they were selling. Like, even when other people were like,
No.
they're a really great preacher, I'm like, he's selling me shit. Like,
Are they though? Yeah.
he's selling me the paycheck that we're going to give back to him.
That's why I like to say I saved 10% by switching to atheism. So, but yeah, so people like Turek will say things like I said, they'll apply this to so many areas. Like they'll say like, without God, you can't justify having any kind of morality, and without having,
It's like, sure, you can't.
right? But I think in similar, like my answer, this is similar to that. It's like when he says like, well, how can you like justify having any sort of meaning in life? Because like I was saying earlier, at some point, like not just for me, but apparently for all humanity, like it's all going to end and just be over and completely erased from any, semblance of knowledge of the past or reality or anything. So they'll say, well, how can you find like purpose? So like part of me is like, there's that aspect like, okay, I can still find reasons. Like you said, there's still the things that I have right now that I care about, the people in my life, the things that I'm doing, kids, obviously. It's like, so one of the common retorts is like, okay, like, it's like for the same reason you can like enjoy a meal that you're having right now, or like a visit to a place that you're going, even, eventually the meal's going to be over or you're going to leave wherever you're visiting. Like just because it's going to be over at some point doesn't mean it doesn't matter, because while you're doing it, it matters. So there's a part of me that can find like reasons like that, but honestly, like I really want to, like I can just fall back on, going back to the whole like possible determinism thing is like, I don't know why I feel like I'm like finding purpose or can say I have certain purposes. Like I don't need to know why, I just do.
Yeah.
So like I don't need to justify. Certainly don't need to justify it to someone like him. Like, but it's like I wouldn't say it doesn't matter why, because I think it still is an interesting question. Like, why do we do things like that? But like, really, all there needs to be to it is we just do. Like, why does there need to be a justification for it? First of all, and also like, why does it? And again, like I said, why does it not being eternal mean it doesn't matter? Even though that's kind of the point I was making earlier, that the fact that it won't be eternal kind of means it doesn't. But that doesn't mean,
Well, it's like both. Like,
yeah. So it's like that whole like nothing matters, so everything matters, so nothing matters, so everything matters.
well,
kind of.
all right. So this is kind of mind bending. All right. So like, you got ones and zeros, and so really, and we kind of look at the world in binary ways. So that's why I'm using that. Yeah. So ones and zeros, and we kind of look like a one is positive and a zero is bad, or like one of something. Like, well, that won't work. I say one of something is better than none of something. It's like, well, it depends what that one of something is.
Right. Yeah.
All right, so you got two sides. All right, good guys, bad guys. But the bad guys think they're the good guys. Think the good guys are the bad guys. So, which one's the good guys? If in that scenario, all they know is that they're different. Like that's the fact of the matter, is that they're on opposing sides and they have different ways of looking at it. And once you find out like what the actual facts of what's happening is, then on top of that you realize people have different narratives about what's happening. Um, like who's to blame for that happening, or who's responsible, and every effect is every effect is the cause of whatever comes after it. So like everything before an event is to blame, and so people try to blame like the opposite political party for something. It's like, no, what are the facts of what's happening right now? Like the country is in this kind of way financially, and there's this kind of things going on in the world, and like people think this and think that, and like, okay, those are the facts. But then to say, and those people are bad because of it, or like these people are good because of that, like that kind of story, like that's not a fact. That's just a perspective on the situation from like a particular set of eyeballs in a brain. Like it.
Yeah.
I think if we all just focused on what do we know for sure is happening? Like, how can we describe this in terms of no good guys, no bad guys, just the facts? Like, describe this moment in time. What is happening?
Yeah. Plainly.
Then you realize, like, oh, everybody's just doing the thing because of the thing that happened before that, and
right. Yeah, which again, it just comes back to like, I just have yet to see a good explanation for why determinism isn't a thing. Yeah.
What if the conscious experience is indeterminate? Like that's where the variation comes in. I'm not saying it can be completely different, but I'm like there's like a I can't pronounce things tonight. Randomization built into the thing, where like every now and then, like your brain's just stamping out circles over and over again, and then like all of a sudden it just goes triangle, and then back to circles. Like those kind of seemingly random blips.
Yeah, but even then, like that's, I guess, in a way, kind of its own kind of determinism. At least its own kind of still not free will. This was something, I think it was Alex O'Connor. I heard him talking about this. He's like, he was in a conversation about free will. He's like, really, like no matter how you slice it, like looking at the natural world, whether things are determined or random, like you still don't have free will. Because like if they're determined, then they're determined. So like free will is out. But if it's random, okay, that random means you don't have control. So therefore, still no free will.
Yeah.
So it's so things may not be. So if things are more random, like you said, like at the quantum level or whatever, so they still may not be like determined in the grander sense, but it's still like determined, like as far as you're concerned.
Yeah, that's incredible. Like to just or like the only thing that might be up to me is how I judge this moment. Like, is this moment good? Is this moment bad? Like maybe that's where our consciousness really is adding a 1 or a 0 to something.
Yeah, but then again, I mean, can you actually choose what your judgment is, though? Because like even like how you judge things is based on so many like prior things. Like
I like the story that I can, but
it's a great story. Yeah,
but like I don't. I'll live a pretend story, if you know what I mean. Like if it helps make sense of bigger things, if I know it's pretend, like that could be fun. People cosplay all the time and shit. Like,
oh, you know for sure. I mean? Or like well, and I say this every time I bring it up. But like I wish I could remember who said it, because I do. But like it's like, do I believe in free will? Like, of course I do. I have no choice.
It's a loop.
Yeah, because that's one of my favorite questions, and by favorite I'm meaning like it's just like so annoying because like when you think about it, you realize how stupid it is. But when you, I guess particularly when this argument is being had like with theists who do believe in free will, because I recognize, from a more Calvinist background that I grew up in, not all Christians even believe that we do have free will. But for those that do, and they'll be arguing with like an atheist or otherwise non-Christian, like naturalist, determinist who doesn't believe in free will. And they'll say, well, like, if you don't believe in free will, then like, why are you even here at this debate? Why are you being so outspoken? Why are you doing anything? Why are you choosing to do any of the things that you do? And, I put it in like, the answer is obvious. Because I can't help it. Like, this is what I've been like. How is that answer not so obvious to them? Yeah. I don't get it, but
I think there's different ways of. This is what I found. I found today. I did it again. Where I was looking at something and I was like, "Wait, I don't like looking at it this way." And then, like, okay, that's a version of what's happening right now. But what if what other narrative is going on in my head right now? Like, what other version of this is my brain processing? And I'm like, oh, I like that one better, and it feels more accurate. So I just kind of like switched over to that one, like that way of looking at it.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, because I kind of like to look at it because like people will still even if they don't believe in free will, they believe in determinism. I think you can still talk about things in terms of making choices. Because like I think that still kind of maps with like determinism because it's like think of something like non-personal, like okay, leaving AI out of it, but like think of like just a computer. Like, because you can think like a computer is still making choices. Like, when I hit this M, to mute my microphone, it's like, it's like the computer is still making choices based on the input that I'm giving it. There's all kinds of things that the computer could do when I hit that button, but it's making the choice to do these certain things. But that's only because that's how it's programmed. So it's been basically predetermined that that's what it's going to do. So like you can still speak in terms of choices, but it's like another way I've heard it put is, okay, so even if you do believe in free will and you can say, okay, I can choose to do what I want. Okay, but then the question is, okay, but can you actually choose what it is that you want? Like, can you choose to want something?
No.
So even if you're making the choice to do what you want, that's still been determined by what you want.
By previous things, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Like, so if you can't choose to want something, or if you can't choose the things that you do want, then what does that even mean to have a choice to do those things that you want to do? Like, yeah, it still sounds like determinism to me.
It might be a limited choice. I don't know. If there is free will, it's limited. Like it might just be like within determinism. There's some branching off moments, but like what we are more prone to choose in those moments are determined by what happened previously.
Yeah.
No, like full free will, I don't think is a thing.
Yeah, I mean, because think about it, it doesn't really make sense because even the most like ardent like libertarian free will advocate would still have to admit like we have limitations. Like I can't choose to be taller right now. Like I'm a short guy. Many times in my life, I wished I was taller, but like I can't choose to fly as great as that would be. I can't choose to like turn invisible. Like I can't choose to grow a third arm. It's like there are already so many things that it's very obvious that we cannot choose to do. So the whole idea of complete free will is just demonstrably not the case. So again, this is what like to bring it back to whole like this is probably more of a like the whole like theistic argument for like free will is an excuse. It's been used for like divine hiddenness or the problem of evil, and it's like say like well God like can't put these limitations on people like that they wouldn't choose to do evil or whatever it is that they're trying to make an excuse for. It's like okay, but he very clearly already put certain limitations on us. So if he can create humans, so even if we want to, we just can't fly. Why couldn't he create us to even if we wanted to, we can't do evil things? Like, yeah, but that's a whole other tangent and topic. And
what if will is something that is a emergent property of the universe?
Yeah, I think in my point of view, pretty much everything is. So yeah, why not?
Yeah, I don't know. It's nuts.
Yeah,
like it's hard. There's a lot of stuff that when you zoom out far enough, like things stop mattering. But
yeah, sorry, I was just cracking myself up because in my mind I was like, it's an emergent property of your face. Speaking of beards, it's starting to come in. It's my beard is an emergent property of my face.
Yeah,
but I mean, it's hard to. I don't know if it shows up on the webcam here with the resolution, but my beard's just in that like total awkward phase of like you can really tell like just how thin and patchy it is. But anyway, I've honestly started to kind of get used to my face without it. So I'm like honestly, if it wasn't for like I said, how much I realize I just hate shaving, I'm actually tempted to like not grow it back. But yeah, we'll see. But yeah, so
why does now matter?
What's that?
Why does now matter?
Yeah, that's actually very similar to what I was like trying to get my brain to make my mouth ask. Like, so would you consider yourself a nihilist, or like where would you kind of put yourself like as far as that's concerned?
I don't know. Yeah, yeah, but it seems like there's stories about life and existence that kind of just emerge out. Like it's not even like in an antagonistic way against nihilism. It's just like we create stories about what's happening, and that's just what we do. And so like what story about what it's like for me, for example, just what stories about what's happening right now feels like the most me. And that's kind of I get what I was getting at with the description of thinking through the spiraling thing earlier today.
Yeah,
like this is uncomfortable. I don't like this. So what possible version of looking at this is the experience that feels the best for me? Because it's not lying about what's happening. It's just what it means for me changes. Like I don't know. I think we need stories for life to make sense and to like just enjoy being people.
Yeah. It's
So what do we do when we know it's not true, but we need a story?
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I'm at is I guess my comfort zone is using stories, but realizing that they're only stories. I kind of mentioned or alluded to earlier, like my main frustration comes from when people treat their stories as if they're real, like to the point where they expect you to agree that their story is real too, even if it's not the story that you're using. I mean, that's basically what religions, for the
Yeah.
most part, are.
It's,
Or
it's
even
almost-
or, whether it's not just religion. It's like it's politics. It's like
yeah.
the way it's
And it's
businesses. It's
funny.
capitalism. It's like tribalism. It's like pretty much anything humans do. We've found ways to say, well, the way our group of humans is doing it is correct, and so therefore all the rest of the humans are wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. And asking what else could it mean is the way for like a religious story to have like just expansive meaning. But it's also kind of like like an atheistic way of looking at the story too. Because when you watch
Hmm.
the same movie over and over again, you're watching it for something new every time, you know?
Hmm.
Like you get the
Yeah.
same experience you had before, but there's usually a new appreciation for something else again. And
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so revisiting the story, even if it's not true, like what more meaning can I get for my life out of this? That's that's something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's kind of religion-y, but it's like all the benefits, none of the baggage.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess like so. I asked you like if you consider yourself nihilist or so like. Now think about it. I don't know if you answered, and that's okay if you didn't, because like you don't
No,
have to.
I'll do a shorter version because I don't think I really answered it. I
Yeah.
think nihilism, but there's like deep webs of meaning uh,
Yeah.
in there, which sometimes often it kind of feels like there's like a tangible property to it,
Mm.
like the
Yeah.
shared story and all that.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is one of those areas like where I've tried to actually like figure out and kind of nail down or like try to label, if you will, um, what my thinking is. Because like the closest thing to a label to where I'm at as far as that's concerned that I've heard is optimistic nihilism.
Yeah,
But then like I've also seen like people say that's not really a thing.
that's
But
just
I'm like,
that's
but
just
like how is
nihilism
it?
PR.
Yeah. But how is it not a thing if it's
It is a
like
distinction, yeah.
yeah, because basically what optimistic nihilism, because this is basically where I am, is like, okay, recognizing that there is no ultimate meaning, no, like, as I like to say, big P purpose to everything. So therefore, I'm free to make whatever meaning and purpose I want, whatever that means in my
Yeah.
life.
Like it depends on
Now,
your perspective if there's a purpose or not.
yeah. So now I've tried to look into like other, I guess, more official and like recognized philosophical terms, like, things like absurdism, existentialism.
I do like
But
absurdism.
yeah, which is basically like but I guess I don't quite go all the way to absurdism because like what absurdism, at least from my understanding, I could be wrong here, but it's basically saying like there is no meaning and therefore trying to make meaning is just absurd, or trying to look for it or find it somewhere just doesn't make any sense. But then there's like existentialism, which I think is kind of close, but then there's always like once you actually dig into it, like it's like the like philosophical principle like as a whole like entails like all it gets more complicated. So because like apparently in existentialism it kind of necessitates like free will in the aspect of like you're like choosing to find meaning or something, but since I don't necessarily believe in free will, I don't know if I can really say I'm existentialist. But
I think
that's why
whatever
yeah.
we think is happening is what's happening in our experience. Like whatever we think is happening in the present moment, like that is our experience of that moment. So like in a way, it doesn't
Yeah.
matter what's happening because
Yeah, but I guess my hesitance with that is like just seeing like how in like practical day to day life how like that's abused. Like think taking this back to politics, people who think what's happening in this country is like Christians are being persecuted and like all their rights are being taken away, and they need to elect someone like Trump to defeat, like fight back with all the wokeism. Like, I'm certainly not the point where I want to say, well, to them that's reality, so therefore that's real. Like no, it's not. But
no, I mean what I mean
Yeah.
is you can't expect them to act differently, and from their perspective, that is what's happening, and so you can't like engage them on a level of going in and saying like that's not what's happening, like because that's what somebody would say in their mind on the other side who's
yeah,
utterly deceived. So
yeah. So that's why like
that people would have to be shown, like you have to, like if
but the
you're
thing
raised,
is, like,
you got to like see other parents being good parents that are like different than you, to realize that they're parents like me.
yeah, but the thing is, like, and this is one of those things. It just depends on the people. That works for some people, and it doesn't work for others. Like, yeah. So that's why, like, again, going back to, I say that as if this is something we were talking about tonight, but it's more like something I've talked about before at some point. Like why I am so like public and like share so much about like my thought process, both like going through deconversion and then like now that I'm out of it, like how I'm viewing things, like why I'm so vocal about it, is because like I guess one of the reasons I do it is like I see like the things that I'm sharing, like these types of things were the things that helped me like get out of where I was. So I'm like, okay, maybe me making these same points to other people might help someone else like change their mind or change their perspective or whatever. But so this is why like, and I've heard a lot of people like deride this quote, like saying like, you can't reason someone out of a position that they didn't use reason to get into in the first place. And like they're usually talking about religion, in that context. But like so many people like me will say like, well, clearly not. I mean, because that's how I came out of it. Like I was reasoned out of it with something I would say, like, to put crudely, I was indoctrinated into. But yeah, so yeah, there are going to be, like you said, a lot of people for whom, like, yeah, you really cannot reason them out, but for some people you can. So that's why I choose to like try. It's one of those kind of like, just kind of keep throwing spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. But if it does, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But
I think if you're able to see that it's reasonable for someone like from the perspective of a Christian seeing an atheist, if you can see that it's reasonable and like they have plausible reasons like for why they don't believe, or yeah, if you can see that somebody else's perspective makes sense and it's not just whatever you think it is, like because they're dumb or bad people or whatever, then you can start to question your own belief.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do that all the time. Sometimes you can't.
Yeah. Because like the thing I also try to remember and keep in mind, like keep myself humble, is like, I talk about how, okay, I reasoned myself out of, religion and faith and belief in God and all that stuff. But also just realizing, like looking back over my life, just how many times I have changed my opinions on things, just recognizing, okay, probably like 5-10 years from now, very possible I'm going to see a lot of things very differently than how I do now. So that's something like I've thought about. Is like, okay, well, knowing that like all the like views and opinions that I'm like sharing so openly now, like how many of those am I probably going to disagree with, and like in just a matter of a few years from now? and should that, it's almost just that thought of like, should I be so like open and vocal about it if I know some of this stuff I'm not even going to agree with myself in a short amount of time? But like part of me is like, okay, basically where I've landed, and again, at least for now, and again, this may be something else that changes in my mind, but basically my approach to it now is like, okay, just keeping that in mind to kind of try to keep myself like humble about it and try to not be too arrogant, but still just it's okay to be honest about what I am thinking right now.
Yeah.
And not putting that expectation on as in just because I'm putting something out there, I can't change my mind later just because I put it out there. Like it's okay to like say, okay, this is where I'm at right now. But just again, approaching it with that appropriate level of humility and just recognizing, okay, I may think differently later, but if I do, that's okay. Like I still honestly think these things right now. So yeah, and I said some of these things may stick, some might not. So for the things that do end up sticking, like I probably look back, it's like, oh, I probably should have talked about that more. But yeah.
Yep.
So yeah. So there was something else on the whole like death theme that I was really wanting to talk about, but I can't quite remember.
Was it the war stuff or or something else?
No, it wasn't war stuff. And like checking the description that I typed up for the show, like I think we covered all of that stuff that I actually like typed out, but which is like I'm proud of us for actually getting to all that tonight. Man, what else? This wasn't it, but something I saw earlier today that I thought was funny because speaking of like contemplating death, one of the things I think about a lot is like that whole question of like, do I want to be like buried or cremated? And like, and if I do want to be buried, like where? And like trying to work that all out. I'm kind of leaning towards just like cremated, just so I don't have to worry about the whole like where am I going to be buried kind of aspect. But I saw this one idea someone posted is like, so here's what you do when I die, I want to be cremated, but for my funeral service, I still want to have like a viewing, but just instead of me in the casket, just have a Muppet version of me. So I think that's kind of what I'm leaning towards now. But so yeah. And that did not help jog my memory.
Did you seriously just talk about your funeral?
Yeah. Why not?
Funerals are dumb. I don't like funerals.
Yeah, one thing I do like if I like for whatever funeral I do have, this is something I actually want to do that was done for my grandmother's funeral, but kind of unintentionally. Basically, there was no like officiant. It was more because I guess for this, cause like she died during COVID, and she didn't die of COVID, but it was during that. And like, so basically, and like the pastor of her church like wasn't available. So basically, the whole service, like there was no like person running it. Like the whole service was basically just a little more like free form, like people just sharing stories about her. Like it was very open, like and like beforehand, like us, like the grandkids, like we put together like some various memories and like someone read that. But other than that, it was just kind of free form, people just talking about her life and things that she meant. And then like, you know, then my dad did like a little like closing thing for it. But I was like, I kind of want that, you know, I mean, obviously I don't want like any sort of like, I certainly don't want like a pastor giving any sort of like sermon or like Christian message about it, clearly. But yeah, I kind of liked how that went. It was just like, it really just felt like the family and like her friends like getting together and just talking about how cool she was and what she meant to us. And that's, yeah. So for anyone watching, like I know I told my my kids, I hope they watch these episodes someday. So if this is one of the ones you're watching, first of all, love you so much. Don't get a pastor for my funeral. Remember those two things. But so
That's
I mean, unless I change my mind, because who knows? But yeah. So maybe we kind of, it'll help jog my memory if I just kind of like recap some of the things we've talked about. All right. So we talked about like, is there an afterlife? What do we think of like near-death experiences? Like
there's
finding
something.
Yeah, something's going on. Finding meaning in this life, even if we don't assume there is. Maybe something close to that, because that sounds like it jogged my memory before. Oh, yeah. So this might not have been it, but this was definitely something else I was wanting to talk about. One thing, like with that whole idea of how we view this life in light of this is all we get. And so contrary to like the folks like Frank Turek who would say, well, how can you value it if it's not eternal? Like on the contrary, the way I look at it now is it gives it all that much more value because this is all I get. Because like in the Christian or like so many other religions, like in their view, like like if you're saying like heaven or whatever other afterlife is eternal, then it's like that's what matters. In this life, it's just like you want to call it like a practice run or just like dress rehearsal or whatever.
It determines where you go,
which is such an odd way to determine such things.
But, yeah, but like it determines where you go, but there's a lot of disagreement about how you get there.
Yeah, and we have no clear message. Yeah. So another tangent, but at least it's related. This is not where I was wanting to go with it, or maybe I was actually wanting, and that's why I'm saying it now. Anyway, still one of the things that like frustrates / amuses me is when I haven't done this lately. Part of me wants to again, just because I'm feeling kind of ornery. Just asking Christians, okay, for most of my life, I was a confessing, believing, very fervent, ardent, whatever you want to call it, Christian. Fervent. Like I believed it. Now I'm not. Am I going to hell?
Depends what Christian you ask.
Right. But the answer I get, and I know I've mentioned this before, but this is the place I used to be, is they think the nice thing to say is, well, I don't know for sure. That's not for me to say.
It's like, you seem pretty calm about that.
Yeah, which when you actually think about that, how disturbing is that a Christian cannot say for sure whether or not someone is going to hell? Shouldn't that be like the most important thing to be perfectly clear on? But they say it almost as like it's like a nice thing to say, well, no one can say for sure. Like that's kind of horrifying.
Apparently not even true. Because
right.
he only said in one of the Gospels, like, that the only way to heaven was through him, and like in the other three, like if you only heard one of those other three, like what the fuck, Jesus?
Yeah, but yeah, like I said, and I say this because I used to be there too. It was like we think that's or thought or whatever that's like the nice, like non-judgmental way to say it, but like. Again, this is one of the reasons that I ended up leaving the faith, because at a time in my life where, like I said, I was just coming off of thought I was dying. Now I'm not, having to rethink everything. I'm just wanting to know something for sure, because everything was just like thrown into turmoil and like nothing made sense. So like, I'm just looking for something to grasp onto. But like the answer I kept getting from Christians is like, oh, we don't know. We can't say for sure. It's mysterious. And isn't that great that it's mysterious? Like, no, it's fucking not great that it's mysterious right now. Like that is like Like that is not good news that you're giving me, that you can't say for sure like what's going to happen to me after I die. Like that is not gospel. That is not good news. So
The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom or understanding or knowledge or some shit.
the fear of the Lord is the beginning of a life of anxiety attacks.
Yeah, that's called being in the spirit, Tommy.
Oh,
Like,
fuck.
doesn't it seem like there's a low level of anxiety that's being like misnamed I don't know, spiritual feelings or the presence of God, or
Right?
it's
Mm-hmm.
like
I
a
do
special
know.
version of fight or flight.
Yeah.
Maybe wait. Okay,
Ooh.
so in fight or flight, there's fight, flight, freeze, and fawn.
Mm-hmm.
And like, isn't worship is fawning, right? So it's a fight or flight response that we've got real elaborate about.
Yeah, giving it a whole production. Yeah.
Like, everything's broken and trying to kill me, and you're like, oh, because of God. Let's worship
Or
something so we feel amazing all the time.
I thought of a fifth F, which
Fuck around to find out.
no, well, I wish more people knew what I meant by this, but I like kind of think of as like the Dark Souls 3 approach of just fuck all this shit.
That's higher consciousness, man.
Yeah.
You're like, peace. I'm taking the elevator up. Like,
I'm gonna breathe. Yeah,
I'm gonna take a bigger view of the situation. Let me what's the next layer
sorry,
of the onion from here?
I'm having a very inside joke with myself with the whole like taking an elevator up being related to the Dark Souls series, because there's this part in Dark Souls 2 where there's this elevator you take up to a place that makes absolutely no sense given how the world's built. But
wait, maybe that's heaven, Tommy.
No, but actually, if anything, the place that it takes you up to is actually closer to hell, because it's a place of like fire and lava, and the main boss is this giant demon-looking thing.
Maybe God's the bad guy. I mean,
that could be
like shit.
Oh, and it's also part of the lore that this particular boss, like part of his soul, is actually the original boss from the first game, which was like the god of that era. So sorry, but anyway, but real quick, just to kind of give you an idea when I'm talking about that elevator. So you're in this area of the game where like you're in this like area, and there's this tower that you're climbing, and you can see this tower like from the distance. You say, okay, it's just a tower. There's nothing above it. It's just sky. But you go into the tower, and at one point in the tower, you get on an elevator, and it goes up from this tower that you just saw the external view of, and like there's nothing around it. But you take it up, and all of a sudden you're in this entire like castle built on lava made of iron that was like not in view at all from outside this tower.
Another reality.
Yeah, but anyway. But yeah, like gonna nerd out real quick on the Dark Souls series. So like in the first game, it almost has like this feeling of like, there's this destiny I have. I'm going on this adventure. And of course, like along the way, because it's Dark Souls, you realize like all possibilities are all kind of dark and depressing, but you still kind of like, but I'm still going to try to make a difference and change things. But it's like by the time you get to the third game, like the whole feeling of it is like, fuck this, just get everything over with and fuck everything. So that's my fifth F in the response there. And I think that's part of why Dark Souls 3 is my favorite game in the trilogy. Like someone said, it's like Dark Souls 3 basically just is nihilism. Where it's like realizing everything's fucked. So carve your own way and your own purpose and do with it what you want. And
intentional living.
Mm-hmm.
Purpose-driven life.
Yeah, because also in the trilogy, the other games are like a little more open, and the world's like interconnected. You can like go all these different paths, and they keep like looping back on each other. Like Dark Souls 3 is very much more like linear. Like there's a set you just go here, and then here, and then here, and then here, and then here, in the end. It's like it feels more appropriate for that game. A lot of people hate on it for that, but I like it. Anyway, so I had reminded myself what I was going to talk about, but then I made myself forget again. Oh yeah, so back to the whole with this being our only life. And how, in a way that contrary to the Turks of the world would say, like, again, to me, that makes it even more valuable. So there was, for people who are familiar with Pascal's wager, which is, if you're not, look it up. I don't feel like explaining it right now, but it's basically an argument like you might as well just believe in God because, that'll give you the best chances for a good outcome. As if somehow God would like honor that kind of belief, where you're just basically just like hedging your bets. It's like, do you honestly actually believe at that point, or are you just trying to game the system? And is that going to be honored? Yeah. I like what lots of people have expressed this, but it was put forth by one of our favorite YouTubers, Paulogia. You know, the Paulogia's wager. It's basically just saying, betting on having an afterlife but then not having one means you've wasted the one life that you know for sure that you do have.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at, and why I'm, again, one of the many reasons I decided to just like leave religion and really like any kind of belief in any kind of like supernatural like being that has given me any kind of like assignment or really gives a shit about what I do. It's like,
yeah, I think that's just a story perception.
Yeah, so to me, I was like I said, like, now to me, like, I'm thankful that my life ended up being more than I thought it would have been like a few years ago. So that's part of my perspective shift. Like, okay, what do I actually want my life to be about? What am I going to focus on? And I just came to the determination, like, I'm not going to waste my life giving it to something that I'm not even sure is even real. Meaning like, what do you want to call that? A God or faith or religion or whatever. So
what we do know is this is as real as it gets, like the present moment.
Right. Yeah, so like as far as I can tell, like I know I'm having this conversation with you right now. I know I'm drinking some wine that I know actually isn't good, but I'm enjoying anyway. Like I know I have my kids. I know I have the rest of my family and my friends and different experiences, things that I have experienced in my life, things I want to still experience in my life. The more mundane things I have to do in order to maintain these certain things, like, working, paying bills, like all that stuff. But yeah, it's all, yeah, like it's kind of all the things. It's kind of like depressing, daunting, but also freeing. Like realizing that this is the one life I have. It's my life, and there is no ultimate purpose other than the people. Basically, the only other opinions that have any say on what my life looks like are the ones that I choose, and whatever that means to choose, the ones that I choose to give say in what my life looks like. And that's been very empowering, like, to realize. It's like I don't have, like I said, there is no overseer in any sort of ultimate sense that I have to worry about appeasing or making my life like align with their will or whatever. It's like, no, it's just like, for the things and people that matter to me, that's what makes my life matter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think that's all the things I really like wanted to get to, unless there was like other things you had in mind, any other input you had to add to that, or.
I remembered that my dad was, so he had a close call before he actually passed away, and my mom said that he told her that he was feeling really anxious about dying because he thought he probably came very close to dying because he was in a coma, sort of. He was out, and I remember that we were like, when is he going to wake up? And then they said, we don't know, meaning like he could be dying, but like nothing's really going wrong else they can fix. It was just kind of like, is his body going to give up or not? And then like shortly after that, he came back, and my mom said that he told her that like he felt that like he did have a near-death experience, but there wasn't anything there. And that was my experience. If I was close that night, I don't know, because I'm going to see if I can get my medical records.
Yeah.
From the hospital, see if they have anything stored somewhere. It was like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But
that'd be interesting to look at. That's also something I've been.
The text files might be somewhere.
Yeah. That's also something I really want to get a hold of. It's one of those things like I've tried a couple times, but then never quite figured out how. It's like I want to get copies of like my full body scans that I had when they found all the tumors everywhere.
Yeah, that should be on file somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it is, but because I saw them, like, and with my oncologist, like in my appointment after that, like, she went through the highlights of them. So I know they exist somewhere, but it's just that I keep forgetting, or I just like keep asking the wrong people or whatever. But yeah, I kind of, part of it is just like,
I think there's a records department you can call directly.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm sure I remember at one point someone did give me a number, but like I called it and then like no one answered, and I left a voicemail and no one ever called back. It's something I just didn't like really persist at or something. But it's one of those things like I kind of want to have just, I mean, part of it just to kind of help like with the processing, like making it like more real to myself. Because like that's what I said, like during the process of having cancer, it was kind of hard for it to sink in. Because like I said, I never really felt sick like the whole time. It's like part of the time, like my brain I was like, are they sure I have cancer? It's like I really don't feel like it, but I think like having the actual like pictures in front, like, oh, this was me. Like this was a real thing that was going on in my real body and almost really killed me for real. So yeah. So I did remember something else I was wanting to get to, and I think it's kind of ironic that this may be one of the last things we get to, given the subject matter. You'll find out in a few seconds when my brain lets me actually talk about it instead of continually setting it up and over-explaining it. And that is when I thought I was dying or thought like that was a very real possibility that could be happening. Like, one of the things that like went through my mind a lot is thinking, okay, what's going to be like the last blank? Okay, when's going to be like the last time I go to this place, or when's going to be the last time I see and talk to this person, or when's my last whatever? And I kind of came to the point where I was like, I kind of almost don't want to know, because I don't want to have that pressure on, okay, this is my last experience doing this or with this person. Like even like with like my kids or my family or my friends, like I didn't really necessarily even like, there was definitely probably some things that I would want to like tell people like before I was gone, but not put so much, but basically just get out there now so I wouldn't have to worry about, okay, this is my last conversation. Got to make sure, like, just basically just beforehand making sure I get everything out that I want to get out so I don't have to worry about it. So basically just instead of putting all the hope in my final interaction with whoever, but just trusting that all of my interactions before then were good enough, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's one thing I've been like trying to even now keep in mind. Because like I said, even whether it's the cancer thing or like even like I said, I'm having my scans tomorrow. Like even if they like come back completely clear, like I could die in a car wreck on my way home. And
it sucks.
because of fucking course, So so I guess in a way that's kind of what does give purpose to like your day-to-day life, just making sure like every day, okay, today, did I say to certain people what I wanted to say? Did I do certain things I wanted to do? Like, because like fortunately that's I guess kind of one of the helpful side effects of just not being a very like ambitious person, like having all these big goals and like I mean, like I said, I do have goals, things I'd like to achieve, but I don't really feel like if I don't achieve this certain thing, then I didn't like, live my life to the fullest. I'm like, I don't really care. So it's like as far as I guess basically, like I say, if I were to die tomorrow, my only regret would be maybe some things I didn't say to certain people. Like as far as like accomplishments, like I don't really give a fuck.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I guess that's kind of what in my life that's been more the focus, just making sure that the people I want to know things about me know those things about me, or know the things I think about them. Which is why I shared that thing with you that made you cry, and it was fun. But I won't go into it now. But it's still true. So
yeah, I think it's important to do the things that I think maybe we should stop looking for meaning and instead start doing the things that matter to us.
Yeah.
Because that's what's inherently meaningful to us. And I don't know, maybe we should stop looking for the bigger meaning.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's to me like it's still kind of this dichotomy of like I would say just like I guess my advice or whatever feels like it should be to people. Okay, make sure you do the things every day. They're like, okay, if I were to die today, I'd be okay because I did this. But then also realizing as soon as you're dead, you won't give a shit anymore. So whatever. So it's like trying to find like no like with those two things like in mind, then trying to how does that actually translate into what I actually do today or right now. Yeah. So I don't know, that's what keeps life interesting, I guess.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I guess in conclusion, don't fear the Reaper and more cowbell. Therefore,
a Reaper is the avatar that I have in the FPS that I play.
Nice.
Well, the little icon thing that is your symbol.
Yeah. Very cool. So yeah, I guess that in mind in closing, and also based on some previous things that I said, play more video games, everybody. Yeah, because honestly, that's where I've found like, if you want to call it fulfillment, like that's one of the things I guess I never really thought about myself. I don't know why. There's like, because like I mean I've played video games like pretty much my whole life as long as they've like been a thing, like we've had them, but I never like for whatever reason just never considered myself like I'm a gamer. I'm a person who really likes video games. The reason is like no, that's just part of who I am, and that's cool, and I enjoy that. So
yep.
So one of these, like, I'm still looking forward to playing Elden Ring one of these days. But that's why if I ever do try the whole like online dating thing, like I plan on being like just like foregoing all like thinking of trying to make like the best possible first impression out there. It's like, no, like if I ever make a dating profile, like it's probably going to be a picture of me sitting on the couch, like with a video game controller in my hand, and like in my description is like, hey, I'm Tommy. I like video games, listening to metal, and jerking off. That sound appealing? Cool. It's like it's like also a post I made recently that I it was like giving some clues about a word, and Aaron commented on it, said apparently you guessed correctly, which I was very proud of. Said like it's a 4-letter word that starts with F and is something I will probably do on a first date.
And she was like, "Did you get it?" And I was like, "Yeah, why wouldn't it be fart?" Like,
yeah, fart. The answer is fart. So. Because like I figure like look at this point, like I'm in my 40s. Whoever I'm dating, you're probably in your 40s too, or close to it. Like we don't got time. Like this is who I am. Like, do you want this or not? I don't have time to fuck around. Unless you want to fuck around, I'll do that too. But just saying. So yeah, basically at the point, like if I ever like, I still have no idea if I'm ever going to try to like be in another relationship. It might be cool, it might not, but yeah, just my whole attitude towards that is like I'm not going to try to do a whole like best foot forward, make best first impression. Like no, my first impression is who I am. Does that sound appealing or not? Cool. So
yeah, I don't know. Like,
so if that does sound appealing to anyone out there, you know,
being concerned about first impressions is for deceivers.
Right? Yep. Learn that lesson. Because apparently apparently in some parts of my life, I gave a little too good a first impression.
Oh yeah.
Or too inaccurate. But speaking of the womp thing, that was something my daughter did this morning that I was like super proud of. So like one of the things I do like when I'm taking my kids to school is like when I remember to anyway, because it's early in the morning and we're all tired and like fuck everything. But sometimes we're like, I ask them like, so anything you're excited about today? Like, are you ready for today? And they'll say whatever. And I'm like, okay, but is today ready for you? And so I asked my daughter that this morning, and she's like, well, it better be. I'm like, well, what if it's not? She's like, well, then, womp womp. I thought that was a hilarious response. I don't know if you heard it through your coughing, but it was great.
Maybe not. Say it again.
Yeah. So I told her like, so is today ready for you? And she's like, well, it better be. And I said like, well, what if it's not? And she's like, well, then womp womp. I was like, I love that. I love that attitude. So yeah. I guess everyone like today have that attitude. Like say life better be ready for me. And if not, womp womp. There.
I kind of feel like Generation Z is kind of like that. Generation Alpha seems kind of like, this is kind of mean, but I think it's funny. Did you ever watch Multiplicity or hear about it where like there were
not really, no.
Michael Keaton played like, there's like several main characters, different versions. Mm-hmm. They're like clones and stuff. And like one time they made like a clone of a clone and he didn't turn out right. And they're like, called everybody Steve. and they're like, the real Michael Keaton is like, what's with this guy? And then like the gay Michael Keaton in the movie, he was like, well, you know how like when you make a copy of a copy, it doesn't look as good as the original.
Yeah.
Funny line in that movie where he goes, "Can I?" Like the real Michael Keaton guy, he goes to whatever his number was, the one who called everybody Steve, and he's going to the house to get something. And he's like, "Hey, you want anything?" And he's like, "A chainsaw, Steve." He's like, right, a sandwich. We'll get you a sandwich.
Oh, maybe I should see that. Anyway,
that's how I remember the line. I don't know if that's exactly right, but Chainsaw Steve was a line.
I like it. Chainsaw Steve. That should be someone's nickname. Anyway, so I guess speaking of death, any parting words? That sounded ominous now.
May your things and stuff be forever with your people.
Yes, forever and ever, however long it lasts. Yeah, so I guess, like Jimmy says to close his show, like enjoy your time because you don't know how long you're going to be here. And yeah, so yeah, hopefully, I guess, pending tomorrow's scans, see you next week. And every week continuing thereafter as long as I can, which I hope is a lot, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right. Good night, everybody.